that Wyoming will go to Donald Trump. Wyoming with its 3 electoral votes. CNN is not making any projections in.
Yes, we're here. It's 9 p.m. election night. Come and say your views. You won't be blocked once you're in the YouTube guidelines, you know what I mean? You do it. You're within the law. Come and speak your mind. Yep. We're on the result watch, so let's see what's going on. I guess there's some updates and shit, you know what I mean? Election.
In the following states that just closed their polls: Arizona, that's a big battleground, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, battleground Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, and battleground Wisconsin. Let's look at the electoral map now. Donald Trump has 154 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 27 electoral votes. 270 are needed to win. Let's bring you a key race alert now. In battleground Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris in the lead with 64.4% of the vote. Donald Trump has 34.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris in the lead there with 326,000 plus votes. Only an estimated 16% of the vote has been counted in Pennsylvania. In battleground Michigan, Kamala Harris in the lead, 54.8% of the vote. Donald Trump with 43.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 55,000 plus vote lead. That's with only an estimated 8% of the vote counted in Michigan. Still very early in Michigan. In battleground North Carolina, Donald Trump in the lead there now, 51.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 47.1% of the vote. Donald Trump with a more than 106,000 vote lead. That's with 39% of the estimated vote counted in battleground North Carolina. In battleground Georgia, Donald Trump in the lead there, 52.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 46.6% of the vote. Donald Trump has a healthy 221,000 plus vote lead. That's with an estimated 66% of the vote counted in Georgia. About 2/3 of the vote in Georgia has been counted. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, Donald Trump in the lead there now with 49.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 48.7% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 13,334 vote lead. That's with half the vote counted in the Commonwealth of Virginia, 50% counted there in Virginia. In the state of New Hampshire, Kamala Harris has 53.6% of the vote. Donald Trump has 45.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris in the lead there by roughly 16,000 votes. That's with about a quarter, 25% of the estimated vote counted in the granite state of New Hampshire. In Ohio, Donald Trump in the lead, 52.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 46.3% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 197,000 plus vote. That's with half the vote counted in Ohio, 50% of the vote counted in Ohio. Let's go to John King at the Magic Wall. John.
Jake, let's start with the context, what you just went through. I'm going to wander over to this wall here just to show the race to 270 at the moment. If you're a Republican, you might be saying, wow, this is a rout. If you're a Democrat, you might be saying, oh, my goodness, we should be worried. No. We're early in the night. As Chris Wallace said, I love the analogy, nobody has broken serve yet. As in, every red state here, Donald Trump won in 2020 when he lost the White House. Every blue state on the map so far, Joe Biden carried when he won the White House. What don't we have? We don't have Rhode Island. We don't have Connecticut. We don't have New Jersey. We don't have Illinois just yet. Long-time blue states. So as we move west and as the count advances in some of the New York as well, some of the most reliably blue states, this map will change in the near future. At least that is our expectation. We'll keep an eye on it. That's the path to 270. You get there by filling these states in red and blue. So let's see, again, an unusual
Can Trump win New York?
Count is early, or because we're going to have the most surprising election of my lifetime. But in Nebraska right now, statewide, you have the vice president winning, but you see most of the votes are out here. She's not so much worried about the statewide vote. She'd love to win Nebraska, don't get me wrong. Nebraska's second congressional district is right here in the Omaha area. Nebraska and Maine award electoral votes based on congressional district, the two states that do that. So eastern Nebraska is what matters most to the vice president. We'll see if Nebraska stays blue. Again, to its south, the state of Kansas, 29% of the vote in. But you see all this? That's, if you're playing Legos, that's Donald Trump. That's how he builds his buildings right there, those small rural counties all across America, especially in the heartland here. So Kamala Harris, the vice president, ahead with 52% of the vote. It's all over here. Kansas City, Missouri, the suburbs here, the more blue areas, the college towns and the more urban areas in Kansas is why she's ahead right now. It's only 29% of the vote. We'll watch as that map fills in. Again, Missouri, when I started doing this in 1988, spent a lot of time in Missouri with Michael Dukakis. It's not a battleground state anymore. But at the moment, it's 51%, but it's only 7%. And again, you see votes coming in the suburbs just to the west of St. Louis, suburbs just to the east of Kansas City. That's why the Democrat is leading at the moment as we go through it. So now let's get to the states that we actually think will be the battlegrounds in the end. We'll keep looking. We'll keep looking, open to surprises here. But let's check in on the big ones. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, still at 16%. This is a 30-point race, just shy of a 30-point race in a state we know is going to be decided by 1 or 2 points. So we'll continue to watch to see. I check in on it just to see if the vote count has gone up. It has not in a while, still 16%. Same with Michigan. We come over, we're up to 10% here right now, 53 to 45. Again, if there's an 8-point lead in Michigan, then you have a blowout. You expect this to be very close in the end. We're missing a lot, right? Earlier tonight, Grand Rapids was red for Donald Trump. That's Kent County out here. Right now, you see it's almost a tie right there. This is one of the battlegrounds within the battlegrounds. Fiercely, formerly reliably red, now a closely fought suburban area around Grand Rapids. We'll keep an eye on that. But still nothing out of Wayne County, Detroit. I just want to come up here to Ingham County. This is where Michigan State is. If this ends the night there, Donald Trump's going to feel very good about his Michigan chances, but we're at 3%. Students here, state capital, government town, should be blue by the end of the night. If it's not, that would tell you something huge. So let's come to where we have more votes in these battlegrounds. Again, I just want to check on Virginia again. This is our surprise at the moment. We're up to 50% of the vote, and you have Donald Trump with a very narrow lead. I did this a moment ago. I just want to do it again for people at home. Most of the outstanding votes, these circles tell you, the larger the circle, the more outstanding votes. We're still waiting to be counted. And the color tells you how the vote's coming in so far in that area. So you see a lot of blue up here. Virginia now has become a blue state because of the Washington, D.C. suburbs in Northern Virginia. The places, the counties, within 25, 35 minutes, depending on traffic, drive. So that's out there, plus Richmond and the suburbs around there. We'll see. Donald Trump is remarkably in play in this state, and this would be, even if it's close, it might tell you something about what's going to happen to its south in North Carolina. They're not twins, but they're very similar, Virginia and North Carolina. North Carolina actually has a higher African-American population. So if you're the vice president, that's part of your base. Here's Donald Trump with a lead, 41% reporting. Again, should the Harris campaign be nervous? Both campaigns will be nervous about battleground North Carolina. It's going to go back and forth. But again, you see, there's still some large pockets of Democratic votes. Also some pretty good-sized pockets of Republican votes in a battleground state. This one's going to take a while to sort out. But you see where the outstanding votes are. I didn't get to this last time in Georgia, so let's go down and look at battleground Georgia and bring that up here right now. We're up to 68% of the vote in Georgia. And you have 53 to 46. So if you're in the Trump campaign, you're thinking with more than 2/3 of the vote counted, you start to feel good about a lead that big, especially in a state that was, 11,700 votes 4 years ago. But let's see what's left out. Where are the outstanding votes? And you see right there why in the Harris campaign you're nervous. You're checking in with all your field captains and your precinct and your county people. But you see right there, you see those giant circles right there and a bigger another big circle over here. There are still a lot of areas that we know vote disproportionately Democratic, where votes are to be counted in Georgia. I just want to come back and make one more observation here. You see that 242,000 vote lead. It is a little after 9 o'clock on Tuesday night. If you go back to 2020, Donald Trump was leading Georgia by 244,000 votes at 9 o'clock on Tuesday night, election night in 2020. It was 244,000 votes then. It's 242,000 votes now. Joe Biden carried Georgia. Doesn't mean Kamala Harris will this time. It just means we need to count all the votes. And you come back out and take a look again to see if the map has changed at all. Texas and Florida have gone back. Ohio has gone back to where you expect it to go back, and that lead seems to be growing. I want to just check in again on this battleground here. Still at 18% there. And so I'm going to do something now. This is an exercise. But you see Trump leading in North Carolina and Trump leading in Georgia. I just want to switch the map here and come over to the race for 270. Okay? This is an if. It's not it. We're nowhere near there. We have a lot of votes to count there. But why is this so important? When you take battleground states off the board, when we're able to project and call them, it changes the chess of getting to 270. If Donald Trump were to hold that, he's leading there now. It's close. There's plenty of votes still for the vice president to catch up. We have to wait and see what happens. But if Donald Trump takes those two, the vice president of the United States needs to win that. That's what makes the math interesting. She needs that 19 votes right there, because if Donald Trump gets that, it gets them to the finish line. So if that happens, that becomes essential. We're not there yet, Jake, but we just like to do the math in our head as we go through the scenarios.
All right, John King, and CNN can now bring you a new projection. CNN projects that Kamala Harris will win the state of Delaware. Delaware, as expected, will go to Kamala Harris with its 3 electoral votes, the small wonder state. Let's take a look at the electoral vote count. Donald Trump has 154 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 30 electoral votes. 270 electoral votes are needed to win. Let's bring you a key race alert now. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris has 60.4% of the vote. Donald Trump, 38.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 284,000 plus vote lead, 284,000 plus vote lead, with only an estimated 19% of the vote in, not even a fifth of the vote. Still a lot of votes to count in Pennsylvania. In battleground Michigan, Kamala Harris with 53.1% of the vote. Donald Trump has 44.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 46,000 plus vote lead. Only a tenth of the vote has been counted in Michigan, 10%. Still very early there. In North Carolina, Donald Trump in the lead with 51.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 46.9% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 119,000 plus vote lead. That's with 41% of the estimated vote counted in North Carolina. In battleground Georgia, Donald Trump in the lead there, 52.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 46.6% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 225,000 plus vote lead. That's with 69% of the estimated vote in Georgia. They're really counting the ballots in Georgia there. 69% of the estimated vote has been counted. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, Donald Trump still has his 49.5% lead, and now it's 49.4%. Kamala Harris is 48.6%. Donald Trump is 18,000 plus votes ahead of Kamala Harris right now, with more than half, 52% of the estimated vote counted in the Commonwealth of Virginia. In New Hampshire, Kamala Harris in the lead with 53.3% of the vote. Donald Trump has 46% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 17,000 plus vote lead. That's with more than a quarter, 28% of the estimated vote in the granted state of New Hampshire counted. In Ohio, Donald Trump still in the lead there, 53.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 45.2% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 275,000 plus vote lead. That's with more than half, 52% of the estimated vote counted in Ohio. John King.
Let's look at the map, Jake, and one of the wonders as we get into the 9 o'clock hour, and this will be in the 10 o'clock hour, 11 o'clock hour, I suspect into past midnight hours, but you're beginning to see more states fill in. Most of it is very early voting, but it's still, as you just see as the polls close and we go from east to west, you now see many more states reporting votes. Let's just take a peek. We've already projected this one to be for Donald Trump. I just want to show you North Dakota. These states feel they don't get respect because they're not huge electoral battlegrounds. I like to wander through and look at the votes and just show people out here. You see South Dakota starting to fill in slowly, very early on, 1% of the vote. This is a surprise at the moment. Nebraska, the vice president so far carrying the state statewide, but we're only at 27%. And again, most of this gray you see from about here west, rural Republican farm country where Trump tends to run it up. Just go back and give you the 2020 example of what I'm talking about. That's what tends to happen. And so we're not there yet. So when that happens, if that happens, that number will change. Again, for the vice president, what you want to do is you want to be here. I'm just showing you Douglas County. It's the big piece of Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. This is where you want to win. The blue dot, they call it. If she wins the blue wall, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, I went backwards. But if she wins those 3 and she wins Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, she can get to 270 electoral votes. So we'll keep an eye on that as it plays out. First votes in Wisconsin, you see it's red at the moment, 796 to 479. Guess what? We have a long way to go in battleground Wisconsin. Just for context, when Joe Biden won it 4 years ago, it was 1.6 million votes. So we are in the infancy stages of counting the votes in battleground Wisconsin, and you watch as it plays out. One of the places we'll watch here, I'll just show you now, 0 votes in yet, the Green Bay area, Brown County. This is one of the key tests. Can the vice president hold on to the president's share of white working class?
Trump kicking ass or what? What's going on? What's the update? What's up? NBC.
Particularly to reach out to young men. If Trump pulls this off tonight or in the days to come, those small changes at the margins among African-American men, I think, will be a huge part of this story.
All right, Garrett, thank you. I want to go over to Peter Alexander at Harris headquarters, Washington, D.C. And how's the feeling there? What's the vibe?
Goodbye.
Well, there's still a celebratory feel here right now. They're waiting for any particular data points that they can know if it's a good indication or not. The Harris campaign individuals still watching behind closed doors. The vice president watching alongside family and friends tonight. A lot of the donors and other big supporters of the vice president's at a hotel here in Washington, D.C. watching as well before they arrive here a little bit later this evening. I'll tell you some of the data points that they are pointing.
Class voters. I just want to show you as we go back in 2020, Joe Biden did not win Brown County, but he got 46% of the vote. The margins within the margins sometimes make the difference in a battleground state. Wisconsin settled by 20,000 votes, right? You look at that 46% for Joe Biden, and then you move back in time, and you see 42% for Hillary Clinton. That makes the difference. She lost the state. He won the state. So one of the things we will watch as the 2024 results come in is not just can she turn out the African-American vote in Milwaukee, not just can she compete in the suburbs, Waukesha, just to the west of Milwaukee, but can she hold her own, just be as competitive as Biden?
There's Trump 154. Kamala 54. Look at that. 100-point lead. But,
Biden was
you know,
in some of these blue-collar.
Oh, what am I talking? 154 to 30. You know the Kamala, the machine gun tripping soon. Yes, it will.
Counties, a long way to go there. Let's pop over to Michigan.
Okay, let's see.
As Jake just told you, we're only at 10% there, so not a lot to look at. You just move it up so you can see it a little bit better at home. The vice president has pulled ahead in Kent County. That's Grand Rapids, but it's early. And again, you're looking down here. I told you earlier, one of the warning signs was Washtenaw County. This is where the University of Michigan is, Ann Arbor. If you move east here, Dearborn is over here near Detroit. Her question marks in Michigan are young voters and Arab American voters, right? You find the young voters here, University of Michigan campus, and again, you say, wow, that's a 30-point lead. What are we worried about that for? Well, you're worried about it because the President of the United States had that 4 years ago. It's a county where, if you want to win Michigan, Joe Biden won by 154,000 votes, so you could say she has some to spare, if you will. She can lose a little bit in the coalition, but you don't want to lose a lot. And I was at the Michigan campus just last week. They have a very aggressive young voter turnout operation there. We'll see later in the night if those numbers change at all. That's Michigan. Let's come back out and come over to the home state of Mr. Tapper, still at 20%. It's bumped up just a little bit there. So what are we looking at? Let's move it up just a little bit. We have some votes. Erie County, as I told you earlier, 25 counties in America, twice for Barack Obama, then to Donald Trump, and then flip back to Joe Biden. So it's a bellwether county. Doesn't mean the person who wins Erie County is going to win the Commonwealth and win the presidency, but that's what's happened in the last several presidential elections. So you look, we're just starting, just getting started in Erie County. 512 votes, just for context. It's going to take close to 70,000 votes to win that county. So we're just starting. That's one of them. Let's come back to 2024 and move over here.
We all got Kamala or y'all got Trump. Let's go. Live stream, don't drop your comments up in there. Ain't nobody gonna block you. Once it's in the YouTube community guidelines,
Really carried it 4 years before that. That's the way it tends to end up. So we'll watch as that plays out. Here's something we do want to look at, is Lehigh County. Only 20% of the vote in here. If there is an impact from the Donald Trump Madison Square Garden event, where so many insults were made about Puerto Ricans and about Mexicans and about Latino and Hispanic Americans, if you're going to see an impact, this is one of the places you might see it, right here. And that's why both Trump and Harris went to Allentown in the final days of the campaign to try to take advantage of it. We're only at 20% right there. But again, you're doing this for context. 62% for the vice president. You go back in time to Lehigh County 2020, 53%. If the vice president can overperform Joe Biden in Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, she's in good shape. So we watch that as it plays out. We're only at 20% of the vote right now. It would come down to it. That's only 20. It's only 20%. So then you come out more. Where else are you looking in Pennsylvania? Let's bring this up. You also had the vice president door knocking in Berks County. Berks County at the moment is blue. If Berks County ends the night blue, my bet would be on Vice President Harris winning Pennsylvania. Why? Let's look at it. Let's show you where it is. Here's Philadelphia. Here's the close-in suburbs around it. And then as you drive out, what used to be farm country, now you see the homes lined up. Right? People moving further out because that's the only place they can afford a home. That's places like Berks County, Pennsylvania. Half the vote counted, a little bit shy of that right now, 51 to 48. Right? Let's go back in time. That was a 53% county for Donald Trump in 2020 when he lost Pennsylvania, and it was a 53% county in 2016 when he won Pennsylvania. So if you're the vice president of the United States, you're keeping an eye on this one. If you can keep this blue, your chances to win the Commonwealth are improved dramatically so, spent a lot of time there over the last year. It is interesting. You find a lot of Nikki Haley voters there, a lot of Reagan Republicans who don't like Donald Trump, who were kind of tormented about voting for Trump or voting for Harris. So we'll keep an eye on that one there. Then you move out here. This is the number 2 in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Allegheny County is Pittsburgh and the suburbs around it, the labor vote, the blue-collar vote, a smaller African-American population, but the urban vote Democrats need. So she's at 68% when you look at that there. You come back in time, he was at 59%. So again, we're early. Let me come back to 2024 and come out. It's 40%. So it's early. These tend to be early.
Let's see. Election. What kind of number is this? West Virginia, Wyoming. Oh, electoral votes, okay. Where it's called Connecticut, Delaware, Senate. 93% in Florida Senate, Indiana Senate, Massachusetts 8% in. You're gonna build up Minnesota, okay. Mississippi Senate, race called North Dakota 71, Senate. YouTube algorithm, let me go, man. Where we at now? Rhode Island. Okay, let's go back to
early votes, which tend to favor Democrats more. So we want to wait and get more to see if that's contextual. At the moment, she's outpacing the President of the United States in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in some key places. We will see if that holds up. The flip side, pick one.
Harris is getting
Cuyahoga County, along the border, northern border of Pennsylvania. Donald Trump getting 71% of there. Half the vote is in. Again, this is Donald Trump's secret. Just runs it up in small rural counties across America. 75%. So keep an eye on that. It's early. We're still counting votes right there. But is the Trump base turning out in the same math numbers in a place like Pennsylvania? He needs to run it up in places like this. There's Bradford. Again, it's only 5% reporting, 75%, 71%.
So now it's Trump wins 154, Kamala 53.
On it, so let's be careful to not make any projections, any tough, lasting cement analysis, I guess I'll call it, but we'll keep an eye on that as we go through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Virginia, every time I come out, I wait to see if Virginia's going to flip back. We're still at 59%. The lead has narrowed somewhat. This would be a shocker. Joe Biden won Virginia by 10 points. By 10 points. Even if it's closer, even if the vice president comes back, let's take a peek. Yeah, the outstanding votes are still largely in Democrat. There's some Republican votes out there. You see the red dots, but the big circles are in Democratic areas. So the math is there for the vice president to recover. But even a close race in Virginia might tell you that it's a more competitive environment for Donald Trump, especially Jake, as we've talked before. Can he do well in the suburbs? And then you see, we're looking at Virginia as kind of it's interesting. What lessons can we learn there? Well, again, they're not exactly the same, but they're similar. You come down to North Carolina, we're above 50% now. It's close. This is welcome to North Carolina. This is what it's going to be. And so you just take a look and you say, what's missing, right? Where are they still counting votes? Again, Mecklenburg County, Charlotte and the suburbs around it, African-American voters, upscale suburbs around it, key to the Democratic coalition. A lot of votes there. A lot of votes in Raleigh-Durham, the Research Triangle, again. And so you see that happening right there. And let's see, we go back here and come back up to Virginia, and we see 49.4 to 48% there. Again, pretty remarkable. 17,000 votes. Again, we got a long way to go. 45% of the votes still to be counted.
Checking on Bitcoin. Oh, shit. Crypto is going for now. 6% in the last Solana. Doge 13%. But there's stuff going on, crypto. Oh, okay. What's going on here?
But we'll take our country camo and freedom back.
That is Twitter X Explorer. What's going on here? Qatar. They call us Nazi garbage soon. We'll call them unemployed. Okay. Men are voting in record numbers. They don't realize everything is at stake. The cavalry has arrived. Okay. What time was this? 7 hours ago. Oh, that's not Elon. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think Joe Biden is going to win. Probably market. Okay, I checked that. 1 hour ago, absolutely. What's this? Louise Brandeis. The remedy to harmful speech is more speech, not enforce silence. Okay. I feel you, my G. I feel you. The answer to falsehood is a symphony of reason, not the hammer of silence. Okay, all the philosophers coming out. I see all the woodworks. Okay. Yo, scared man. Yeah. Elon out. But we have the R minus. I can't read all that shit, man.
Counted, but Joe Biden won it by 10 points. So if you're in the vice president's camp, you're a little nervous.
Okay, let's see what else is out there. Come on.
After, shouldn't it be this federal scaled issue?
Like, what did you think? Like, you're sitting in London.
Well, I tell you what.
And you're watching this.
I tell you
what do you think?
What does the world think?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
What does the world? America. How can they have sunk to the depths of having a man like this leading them, and at the same time making the whole world a more dangerous place? And yet, mainstream media covered it all up. Kamala Harris
for sure
covered it all up. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing's been an embarrassment, really, hasn't it? But I mean, it's unbelievable. But also on the coalition, there's been a coalition of leadership as well. Clearly Donald Trump is way head and shoulders above everybody else. He's like, in British terms, the king. He's there.
In British terms.
In British terms, obviously, because we wouldn't want to mention that here. Be too difficult.
This AI.
Live. See what the New York Times, the fake news. Nothing. Okay, let's check out the rally. I don't know, I can't play the music. Oh yeah, forgot.
Sorry, Hallie, you'll recall in 2016, Hillary Clinton, when she did the postmortem of her campaign, the criticism was she didn't spend enough time in Michigan. And so what we've seen from the Harris campaign is she has been there. And Trump has certainly been there as well. He closed out his campaign there. And so the
5 minutes.
Trump has been very focused on that area as well because he knows he's got to.
Well, just to demonstrate how complicated politics is, Harris is on defense to a certain extent over her stance with Gaza and Israel, the Biden administration stance in Michigan, but then also losing some of the Jewish vote, for example, in Pennsylvania and Florida. We've heard about that anecdotally as well. It's about the bottom of the hour. We can do some race checks here. You mentioned Michigan. Well, let's put it up there. Let's see what we've got in terms of results, and the votes are being counted in Michigan, one of those key Midwest battlegrounds. It is too early to call. That's just about a little over 10% of the vote, but now you've got an eye on what we've got there. Arizona polls just closed a half hour ago. Way too early to call there. It may well be days before we're able to call that one. Wisconsin, another in the industrial Midwest, too early to call. Just starting to get the votes counted. Pennsylvania, stop me if you've heard it before. It may all come down to Pennsylvania, and it is too early to call, but we're about 30% of the vote there. North Carolina, also too early to call at this hour. And staying down south in the Sunbelt state of Georgia, which President Biden carried 4 years ago, and former President Trump badly wants to get back into that red column. That is too close to call at this hour. So here is the road to 270. That is the magic number that a candidate needs to win the White House, and that is where we are in the early going at this hour.
I always wonder what it looks like from the other side, from the candidates, when they're doing the same thing we are, essentially pulling up these numbers, trying to weed through them, trying to figure out where you can be optimistic. When you don't have the pressure of people looking at you.
You want a fun fact? Fun fact alert?
We love it.
The last election was decided in 4 states by approximately 80,000 voters. You could fit those voters into Cowboy Stadium. Wow. That's
You've
what we're
done your
talking
homework,
about.
girl. Let me
We're
tell you,
talking about
that is a good. That's
My
a good
husband's
nugget.
going to be very mad at me that I didn't say
up the
Eagles
Cowboys.
Stadium, but it wasn't the right number for the stadium. I tried.
You stick with any stadium you want.
Yeah, you got next to polls?
He's sad about the link. Yeah, I do. And this is a more broad look at the issues that voters say are important to them. As we're talking about some of these issues in these key battleground states, nationally, we saw something really interesting here, right? We saw consistently in public polling over the course of months, it's economy, inflation, cost of living that voters said over and over again was the most important issue to them. But look at this electorate. From our exit polls that we're seeing now, and again, this could shift a little bit. These numbers could still change a bit as more waves of information come in. But look at what's number one. 34% of voters say the state of democracy is the most important issue to them. Put a little asterisk next to that. We're going to talk about that more in just a second. Second here, 31% of voters say the economy is the most important issue to them. That is typically what we would see in other elections. It's what we've seen in the past. I would also note that just because a candidate leads on the top issue doesn't mean that they would win the election. Abortion is right there at 14%. Immigration trailing at 11%. And why do I bring that up? That was key to former President Trump's close. When you look at the vote breaks for this, which just means who people supported when they said this was their top issue, on state of democracy, voters broke for Kamala Harris. So she leads on that issue. More people who said that democracy was their most important thing backed Kamala Harris than did Donald Trump. She is also leading on abortion as well. It's the flip when you look at economy and immigration. More people who said that the economy or immigration were their most important issue backed former President Trump. That is not altogether shocking, right? Those issues, economy, inflation, immigration, it largely tracks with what we had been seeing over the course of many months since Kamala Harris got into this race in public polling. But here's what's interesting, and let me walk back to the desk with you to talk through some of these democracy issues here. This is a funny question, state of democracy, because there are Republicans who believe that the state of democracy is an existential threat, largely because of the election fraud lies that Donald Trump talks about. There are Democrats who believe that the state of democracy is under threat because of former President Trump himself if he were to be back in office. So this is a tricky one. It's not like it cuts obviously one way or the other. So there's some unpacking.
All right, my God.
350,000 outstanding ballots just in Gwinnett alone. And then you put that into the bigger picture.
Gwinnett County.
Sterling, that there's still 1.5 million outstanding ballots in Georgia, give or take. Jay?
And we actually have a correspondent / anchor in the Gwinnett County Election Center in suburban Atlanta, Victor Blackwell. Victor, what can you tell us about the vote count in Gwinnett County?
So let me tell you what's happening right now. Zach Manifold, who Pam just mentioned, the supervisor of elections, is on the phone right now with Brad Raffensperger, explaining what the delay is. As Pamela said, it's a problem with the adjudication of some of those write-in ballots. We spoke with him just a few moments ago at the 8:15 news conference here, in which he said there was some delay in processing those and getting those 322,000 early in-person and absentee mail-in ballots to the state tabulation center, to that computer. It statutorily had to be there by 8 p.m. He says that it was just the computer system clicking down to identify the names in the write-in column for president, specifically for that race, and there appears to be a problem with that system. So right now there are from Gwinnett County about 72,000 votes, still about 250,000 of the early in-person votes and those mail-in absentee votes that were supposed to be in more than an hour ago. And he's on the call right now to determine what happens next and explain to the Secretary of State's office what they're doing and probably look for some guidance on how to move forward, Jake.
All right, Victor Blackwell in Gwinnett County. And John King, as happens every election, human beings are fallible, machines all the more so.
Right, which is why you want trusted officials to deal with the problem when it arises. And we know from 2020, Georgia happens to be a Republican Secretary of State, and these local county officials, they know what they're doing. And they have a problem, then they make a plan, right? They have a problem, you try to find it a solution. So where is Victor Blackwell? He is right here. He's in Gwinnett County, one of the most important suburbs in the Atlanta area, to the northeast of Atlanta. And as we noted, only 16.
Gwinnett County is a suburb. I thought it was a shithole.
So a long way to go in the count, Jake. And this is a place where, again, with Donald Trump with a pretty healthy lead statewide right now, that's what you're waiting for. You get a giant basket of votes reported from there. It gives you better context about the real state of the race.
All right, John King, we have a projection for you now at home, you people at home. CNN can project that New York, as expected, will go to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris will be the winner of the 28 electoral votes offered from the Empire State. Let's take a look at the electoral vote count now. Donald Trump in the lead, 154. Kamala Harris with 81. 270 are needed to win. Neither of them is there as of yet. Let's go to Abby Phillip at Harris campaign headquarters here in Washington, D.C. on the campus of Howard University. Abby.
Yeah, Jake, this group here has been here for a little while now, and they've been watching the returns as they've been coming in. You're hearing them right now cheering as they're seeing you, a little bit delayed, calling New York for Kamala Harris. They want some good news tonight. I can feel the anxiety in the crowd. These are all people who want to have a party. They want to celebrate. There's been a DJ playing all night long. But the results are coming in, and they're coming in slowly. But each time a race is called for Harris or she is shown in the lead in one of these battlegrounds, it is a big moment for the folks here at the Kamala Harris headquarters. And Jake, as I'm talking right now, you can probably hear me talking to you, but the crowd, they're excited. They're ready to go tonight. They want to see more reporting and results that they like to see. Back to you, Jake.
All right, Abby Phillip in Washington, D.C. in the campus of Howard University, where Harris is holding her campaign headquarters right now. Let's go to West Palm Beach, where we find Caitlin Collins at Trump HQ. Caitlin.
Yeah, Jake, I should note, obviously, we are all still watching these numbers come in. There is no celebrating happening yet inside the Trump campaign. But one thing that is giving them a confidence boost this hour are the numbers that you and John King were just going over in Virginia. They were looking at that very closely, comparing it to President Biden's numbers there in 2020, and it is making them feel good tonight, lifting their spirits. Now, no one is saying that this is obviously anywhere near over yet. They are still watching very closely to the blue wall of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Donald Trump calling into radio shows in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania in just the last few hours as he's at his Mar-a-Lago club. He just spoke to supporters briefly, Jake, but as he's talking to the people who are at Mar-a-Lago, he's also getting constant updates from his own campaign team. And right now they are watching a few key indicators, including the turnout from black males in Georgia and in other states, but also just watching those numbers in Virginia. We'll see, Jake, of course, if that pattern continues throughout the night.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks so much. John King?
Jake, a fascinating map at the moment. You just updated the electoral vote count, 154 to 81. You're looking at a map now. There are a lot of Democrats looking at this map and saying, wow, we're having a great night. I would just say, be cautious. Enjoy the moment, but just be cautious. Why do I say wow? Well, at the moment, we touched on this a little bit earlier, the vice president is still leading statewide in Nebraska What she wants to win is the 2nd congressional district, which is right here. Nebraska, one of 2 states that awards electoral college votes based.
Back to Mecklenburg when we talk about North Carolina. This is Charlotte and then the surrounding suburbs. They need to drive up the vote here. It is a majority-minority county. Hispanics and African Americans, they have to drive up the numbers here. When they lose races like Senate races, it's because the turnout is not where it needs to be in Charlotte. So not enough vote there. But the good news is there is vote in other places. Wake County, this is the capital. Raleigh, part of the Research Triangle. You can see Kamala Harris slightly overperforming President Biden with 76% of the vote. Whoops, that was a mistake. Let me go back to North Carolina here. Here we go. Okay. Right over here, Durham, this is where Duke University is. 85% of the vote is in. 81%. Let's see how she did compared to Biden. Slightly overperforming there, and just over where UNC Chapel Hill is. Slightly overperforming there. Here's one thing, though, that Republicans have something to possibly celebrate. This is Nash County. This is Governor Roy Cooper's county. This is where he's from. It's sandwiched between Raleigh, Wake County, and the North Carolina Black Belt, where you have those counties with high percentages of African-American voters. It usually, almost always in the last few elections, has picked the winner. 2012 Obama, Trump flips it. Biden it went with Biden in 2020. That wasn't a correct pick. But today, Trump is on top. And you can see that's good news for him, considering that Biden took it in 2020. We're also watching New Hanover. This is Wilmington. You have a lot of people who have moved to the east coast of North Carolina, the coastal communities here. Only 5% in, but this is also one of those counties that has always picked the winner in North Carolina. Not enough vote in to even compare it. I do want to talk about the Triad. This is, again, sometimes the forgotten metro area, but huge population center for North Carolina. A lot of the historically black universities are here as well. Greensboro, Guilford County, 55% in. Let's see how she's doing compared to Biden. Look, she's holding her marks. So this is pretty good. I want to see how Trump's doing, though, in some of the rural counties where he has to drive up the vote. Robeson, look, only 23% in. He's overperforming there. I want to go a little closer to Charlotte. Union County seems to be doing okay. Again, this is along the southern border, right above South Carolina. Seems to be holding his own. Anson, 92% in. This is actually a big flip. Let me see what this looked like in 2016. So this is interesting. Clinton won in 16. Biden won in 2020 with 92% of the vote in. Trump is on top right now. Again, not a large county you're going to see. There's only about 10,000 votes here. But we're kind of reading the tea leaves and seeing where everything's at so far. Again, statewide, 63% in. This is the only battleground state that Trump won in 2020. That's why we're watching it so close. It was very close. It was his slimmest margin. 63% of the vote is in. We're still watching and waiting here in North Carolina. As soon as we can make a call, again, too early, you know we're going to project it, guys.
Tom, you had a little something for everybody in that, no matter who you're rooting for. We got a couple of results to read to you right now. These are ballot measures. We saw the abortion measure go down to defeat in Florida. It had a 60% threshold. In New York, it passes easily. 71% of the vote is the margin there. We'll go to Maryland. There was also an abortion rights measure, and that easily passes as well. Both of those blue states. Let's bring Laura Jarrett into this conversation because we do have 10 states that have these ballot measures, and obviously Democrats have hoped that would help their fortunes, and especially in these battleground states.
New York, obviously not a place where people think of abortion rights under threat, but the initiative there was broader than just about abortion. It had to do with anti-discrimination principles more generally, reproductive health.
Based on congressional district, only 30% of the state. You see all this gray. Those are small, rural, farm country, beautiful, beautiful parts of Nebraska that tend to vote for Donald Trump in overwhelming numbers. So let's wait to see that one play out. But then you move east, and remember, what was the surprise poll of the last week of the campaign? It was the Iowa poll that showed the Vice President of the United States actually no clear leader, but 47 to 43, I think, if I have it right, a little bit ahead of Donald Trump in what has been, since Barack Obama left the scene, a reliably red state. Well, at the moment, only 19% of the vote in, but at the moment, Democrats in Iowa, and I suspect elsewhere, are saying, we told you so, but we have a long way to go in the count. Right? So Polk County is Des Moines, 83% of the vote, and this is almost the downside for Democrats, if you will. She's getting 56% of the vote, but you're at 83% already. So you got some more coming in, but this is your biggest basket, biggest Democratic stronghold, the capital of Des Moines. If you haven't been in Des Moines in 10 years, it's a very different city than you might remember. A lot of young professionals, insurance industry and the like, Democratic stronghold there. Joe Biden got 56% in Des Moines in 4 years ago. So if you think, oh, wow, look at that, just let's be careful and be cautious. But we are waiting. Ames, college town, right up here, Story County. Ames, we have nothing right now. That's a place where President Biden got 57% of the vote. When we get numbers here, we'll look at that, but let's see that. If the Democrats are going to surprise us, even by making Iowa much closer than it was 4 years ago, you'll see some math in these blue counties, more people, enthusiasm. Enthusiasm matters in a competitive environment. So we'll see what happens with Iowa. Again, it has been a red state for quite some time. And just to put the exclamation point on the "it's early," the state of Missouri, as the vice president of the United States ahead right now, Missouri hasn't voted blue for president in a very long time. Again, let's be open to surprises. We'll count votes. Now let's come in to the battlegrounds where we are waiting. Wisconsin is blue. It was red last time. Still very, very early. 18% of the vote counted. This is critical for Vice President Harris. If, emphasis on if, you can win Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, hold that Nebraska congressional district I just showed you, then you're the President of the United States. Right? That's her easiest. No path is easy, but her easiest path is keep the blue wall. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. So let's move up Wisconsin so you can get a better look at home. She's ahead right now at the moment, but we're only 18% of the vote. And again, John's a broken record tonight, but I want you to look up at all of those gray areas, and I just want to remind you, in most of them, not all of them, but in most of them, you're in rural Trump country. So as you come back to the 2024 map and you say the vice president's ahead, that's where you want to be. You want to be ahead. You've got a long way to go. So what are we looking for? I'm going to do this in reverse order. Because of the questions about young voters turning out, whether unhappiness with the White House over Israel-Gaza, Israel-Hamas policy would impact youth turnout. 38% in Dane County. That's the University of Wisconsin. Absolutely essential for any Democratic win in Wisconsin to run it up here, not just in the percentage, but with the raw math. So let's look. 38% of the vote. So a long way to go. Long way to go. Let's just compare it to the president. President Biden had 76%. Keep an eye on it. Don't panic yet if you're a Democrat, but keep an eye on that because the vice president needs to be as close to that as she can be. And at the moment, she's running a little bit behind that. That's Dane County. That's Madison. This is the biggest population center. Spent a lot of time here in the last year. The big question here is, do black voters turn out? And the subset question of that is, does Donald Trump make inroads, especially among black men? We did see some evidence of that in our several trips out to Milwaukee. At the moment, I was texting with somebody in Milwaukee earlier, by the way, who said they thought turnout was actually going pretty good for the Democrats. We'll see if that turns out. At the moment, 25% of the vote in, 66% if you round up, 32% for Donald Trump. So let's just go back in time knowing we have a long way to go. And Milwaukee sometimes reports late. But if you go back in time, Joe Biden again, 69%, Trump at 29%. So the 69% is what jumps out. Trump is a little above.
It's going to be close.
Right now, Trump's a little above where he was 4 years ago. She's a little behind where the president was 4 years ago. It's only 25% of the vote. We're not pouring cement on any of this, but that's where you say, oh, we got to keep an eye on that as we go forward. Then you move over here, you go into the WOW counties, Waukesha, the biggest among them. This is a Republican suburb. Long has been a Republican suburb. The challenge for Democrats, I've been saying this about Trump in the battleground states that tend to lead in blue. Where's Trump's number in the suburbs? Can he compete? He's not going to win, but can he compete? That's the challenge for the vice president here. Waukesha County tends to be a Republican suburb. So there she is at 40%, Trump at 59%. Again, you go back in time, 59% to 39% 4 years ago. Welcome to another 20,000 vote race probably in the end in Wisconsin based on that. It's a 66% of the vote in there. It's essentially matching where we were in 2020. And again, just so you remember our history here in the blue wall, Harris is leading right now. We got a lot of vote to count right here, but I'm laughing a little bit just at the 22,000 number because if you look at that right there, Joe Biden won this state in 2020 by 20,000 votes. 4 years before that, when he cracked the blue wall and became president, Donald Trump won Wisconsin by 22,000 votes. Welcome to Wisconsin. It's a state that tends to hang around the margins of 20,000 votes, which is why that is somewhat amusing to me. Earlier, she just put it up to 34,000 to shut me up. And there we go as we go through the count in Wisconsin, very early there. Let's come over to battleground Michigan. Let me come back for a second. See that? If they stay that way, and it's early. Don't call your bookie. Don't make any bets. Don't pop the champagne. But you see Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, right? Especially if you're looking at a map where North Carolina and Georgia are red at the moment. They're not done either. But if you're a Democrat, you're kind of a little, ooh, should we be nervous about this? Then you should be, wow, should we be optimistic about that? So let's take it away and see what I mean by that. Number one, let's just start to the east and go west. Up to 32% in Pennsylvania. Long way to go. Just want to check on where we are in Philadelphia. Still at 26%. You get Philadelphia over 50%, then we can start to understand what the math is elsewhere as you go. But again, you see most of the rural areas filling in for Trump. That's his strength. That is his strength, and Pennsylvania is one of his best states. Let's come up here into Michigan. We're still only at 14% in Michigan, and we have our first votes out of Wayne County, and it shows Donald Trump with the lead in Wayne County. If Wayne County's red at the end of the night, Donald Trump's winning the presidency in a landslide. We're at 1%, so that's unlikely to happen. The question is, where does it end up? This one's more interesting, Macomb County, but again, it's 500 votes. 506 votes. Trump wants to keep it somewhere around there. Go back in time. You see he's at 53%. If Donald Trump can win Macomb County, it keeps him competitive. Keeps him competitive in the state. The higher above 50 he gets, it matters. This is one of the signature key counties for Vice President Harris and her Michigan chances. Oakland County, the birthplace of Mitt Romney, used to be a Republican county when I started doing this. She's at 55% right now. They're just past half the vote. So look at the 55%. Little behind Joe Biden. That can matter. That can matter. We're not done yet. She's only 55%. A little bit behind. Biden had 434,000 votes when he won the county. And you're just checking on turnout. She's at 234,000 with about 54%. So you're in the ballpark of similar turnout. Let's see what happens as that comes in. And you're going to watch that number, but that number. Tiny changes in the margins can affect the battleground states. So Trump's at 43. Let's do it that way. Trump was at 42. Again, it's tiny. In the close states, tiny can matter. We'll keep an eye on that as we go through the count in Michigan. And then one more. I was already over there earlier. Let's come back out and see. So the blue wall at the moment is blue. And the Sun Belt states, which used to be reliably red and are now battleground states at the moment, are red. So we'll just check in, see if anything else came in. Georgia's at 79%. The president's lead is 204,000. It was 240,000 a little while ago. The president's lead has come down a little bit. I just want to remind everybody, in this hour, 4 years ago, Donald Trump was leading Georgia by about 244,000 votes. Joe Biden won Georgia when the votes were all counted. Doesn't mean that's what's going to happen this time. It just means you'd rather be ahead than behind, but we're not done yet. Let's come back up to North Carolina. We're at 63% in North Carolina. This count's coming up now. This count's coming up a little bit. You're at 177,000 vote lead. That would be a blowout. Anything in triple digits in North Carolina. Again, you go back 4 years ago, the closest of the battleground states Trump carried, 74,000 votes then. You see how close it was, 50 to 49. And so let's come back now and take a look. The blue then is where the blue is now, except for this one out here, I believe. This one, Haywood County, well, we're only at 4%. If you go back in time, that was a Republican county. I look out there because, and if anyone's out there watching, we hope you're doing all right. This is an area of the state that was hit hardest by Hurricane Helene, and the state and the county officials and the local officials, God bless them. They did amazing things just so people could vote. I know the more important things are, can you live, can you get housing, can you get food, can you get water, and things like that. But the fact that people are voting out there in good numbers is a testament to the state and to the county officials. And people have heard a lot of misinformation out there. We see what's happening. Democracy is unfolding in western North Carolina. This is where it matters most if you are the Democrats. And only 14% of the vote is in. So you see Donald Trump leading in North Carolina, but you see only 14% of the vote in Mecklenburg County, which tells you, let's just take this for a while. Let's just go through and see what happens as we go. It's 11% of the statewide population. The vice president's at 60% right now. So you go back in time. Again, this is, if you're the vice president's camp, he lost. Joe Biden lost North Carolina, getting 67% of the vote in Mecklenburg County. She, at the moment, is getting 60% of the vote. Is that meaningful? We don't know yet. We don't know yet. It would be meaningful if we end up there, but it's only 14% of the vote right now. So then you come back out here, and again, that would be Donald Trump doing better in the suburbs. If he gets her number down from Joe Biden, that would mean Donald Trump was doing better with black voters and in the suburbs. But we watch that. We still have a long time to go. Wake County is Raleigh, number 2. Mecklenburg, number 1 population-wise. Wake County is number 2. She's at 64% right there. Trump's at 35. You go back in time. Trump's at 36. She's at 62. Roughly the same. Roughly the same. Won't make a big deal about that now. Sometimes roughly, you start looking into the margins of roughly if we get to 80, 90% of the vote. Move over here to Durham, your 6th largest county now, right? So Raleigh, Durham, the Research Triangle, young voters, some black voters, some college-educated suburban voters in the healthcare industry and the other industries in the Research Triangle there. 81% of the vote right now with 85% in. So this is where you can make a comparison. You're at 85% of the vote. You can say, okay, where are we? Where was Joe Biden? 80%. So she's matching Joe Biden here in a key place. Trump's at 18% in 2020. We see him at 18% now, a little bit below that. So this, if you're the vice president, you're matching the president. The question is that good enough, right? He lost the state by 74,000 votes. So we come back out where else do you want to look? You look for the other Democratic pockets, right? Cumberland County, this is Fayetteville. We're just starting, right? We're just starting. This is the 5th largest county in the state. So that's, if you're the vice president, you think there's some room for growth there because we're not there yet. And again, I just want to show you, you see the blue in the urban areas. North Carolina along here, that's the belt here. These are black voters here for the most part in these Democratic counties. Absolutely essential to the vice president's math. And then you come down to Georgia, again, in these states, you just see all that red. Not a lot of people live in those, but if you do county after county after county after county, you run it up. And Jake is...
The fact that this race and Donald Trump is even in a position that he's in right now, considering all those things, I think tells us a lot about Kamala Harris and her lack of ability as a candidate, Betsy.
She is a very poor candidate, and you've heard more and more Democratic professional politicians and strategists admit.
As I toss back to you, just one more check. Now Fulton County still at 80%.
Is this not updated or something? It's the one is showing 162. Okay, let's update this 162. Okay.
Should it be mostly legal or illegal? 68% of Nevada voters, nearly 7 in 10, say abortion should be mostly legal. 28% say it should be illegal. And Biden's job approval rating is at 40% in Nevada, 59% disapprove. That is about where it is nationally, Jake.
All right, David. Thanks so much. Let's go to John King at the Magic Wall.
Well, Jake, we're starting to watch now as we go further.
Okay, what else did I say just now? What was she just saying?
Admit that over the last 3 days, that Kamala Harris just did not measure up. It was a big mistake to slide her into Joe Biden's position instead of having a very rapid mini primary of sorts.
So
yeah, and you know, interesting too, you see a guy like Barack Obama.
Oh, it's a CNN Newsmax have it at 210-105. CNN.
The West, we have more states coming in. Some of the states we talked about earlier that we thought were aberrations.
So why these people so weird?
Primary process, and they were all stuck with her. And, you know, the limitations of being able to mount a presidential campaign in this short amount of time with a candidate who's never proven herself, these are the results you get.
Of your peanuts.
It was highly cynical. Let's face it. It was very, very cynical. A slap in the face to Americans, Democrats and Republicans alike, who believe in a fair system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, protecting democracy here. Well, today Americans are at the ballot box. There are still polls that are open, and 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 12 a.m. Former Lieutenant Governor of New York, Betsy McCoy, now our morning anchor here on N2. We'll be waking up with you as well tomorrow, Betsy. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
I saw a video today. Someone took a super clip where it was all the clips of the pundits talking about, oh, they're going to destroy democracy, but they replaced the word democracy with bureaucracy. And it makes a lot more sense when you think of it in those terms. All right.
I always love those clips, and you're like, whoever made that, doing a great job. All right, folks, we are in it now, and we are so glad you are with us. We're going to take a very quick break. We're back with much more here on Election Night on N2.
More polls closing at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Montana, Nevada, Utah. We'll bring you those results as soon as we have them. A live look for you here at the Trump Victory Party in West Palm Beach, Florida. Very creative hat.
Oh.
By that Trump supporter right there.
Could go for some French fries about right now.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. All right, we'll see you in just a few moments.
Or early votes you see right here now. including Kansas. Kansas has gone back to being a Republican state. We expect it will finish out that way. There are some Democratic, pockets of support here. They're mostly in the eastern part of the state, Manhattan, Kansas. Well, remember, it was Kansas that sounded the first alarm after Dobbs when the amendment passed out there protecting abortion rights. So we'll watch the result margin. We expect Kansas will be a red state at the end of the night, but you will keep an eye on that to see about that. And then you keep coming forward. Here's the one that's interesting, and it's staying interesting, but we're only at 31% of the vote. Iowa, which again has not been a state we paid much attention to since Barack Obama left the scene. Donald Trump won it comfortably twice. The Harris lead is shrinking a little bit, but she's still ahead in Iowa, 51% to 48%. And if you look through, I said earlier we were at 83% in Polk County. We're still there. That's the bulk of your Democratic votes. You start moving down. You come over here to Cedar Rapids, which is Lynn County. You're only at 34% of the vote here. So there's some business to be done in terms of Democratic votes for the vice president in what is an interesting state. If this one is competitive, it would be a surprise, and election night surprises are always interesting. You see there Dubuque County there. We'll see how that one plays out as we go forward. So now let's come over to some of the bigger battlegrounds. Again, if you're in the Harris campaign, especially because we're not done by any means, but if North Carolina and Georgia, Trump's ahead there, then you'd rather be the candidate ahead in the blue wall states. And at the moment, the vice president is 34%, a little more than a third of the vote counted in Wisconsin. Again, you see Trump filling in the rural areas. Just want to check. I teed this up earlier. Brown County, Green Bay, blue-collar workers. Kamala Harris is not going to win Brown County. The question is, can she compete? When Joe Biden won the state, you see she's at 33%. We're only at 12%, so we have to do this a little bit later. But Joe Biden had 45%. So it's a key test of white blue-collar workers. Can the vice president of the United States try to at least come close to where the president was at the moment?
Okay, so right now we're looking at Trump 172, Kamala 81. What's that shot for Trump so far? Yeah. Hopefully can't pull it off here rest of the night. Can close it out. No doubt. Okay, let's get back, see what's going on. Over here. Boom. See
at the moment she is not, but it's a very early in the count right there. Again, the foundation of any Democratic victory is down here in Milwaukee. We're almost at half the vote right there. She's at 67% there. Let's just go back in time and look. The president was at 69%. It sounds like not a big deal, 67, 69. Let's see. Right now, we're only at 48% of the vote. If at the end of the night she's underperforming the president in Milwaukee by a couple points, that can make the difference in a state, Jake, that in 2 elections in a row has been decided by 20,000 votes. Jake?
That's right, John. And we're just moments away from another round of poll closings. Voting is about to end in 3 states, including the key battleground of Nevada. A total of 16 electoral votes are on the line right now. And CNN can project that Donald Trump will win the state of Montana. As expected, Trump gets Montana with its 4 electoral votes. CNN can also project that Donald Trump will win the state of Utah. As expected, Utah with its 6 electoral votes. Nevada is too early to call, a battleground state that Donald Trump has narrowly lost in the last 2 elections, but is making a big play for this election. Let's look at the electoral math right now. Donald Trump has 172 electoral votes. Kamala Harris with 81 electoral votes, 270 electoral votes needed to win. Neither of them is there yet. Let's look at the key races now. Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris, 49.9% of the vote. Donald Trump has narrowed her 20,000 plus vote lead. He's at 49.2% of the vote. More votes have come in from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. 43% of the estimated vote from Pennsylvania is in, and Kamala Harris right now has an 18,000 plus vote lead there. Kamala Harris in the lead in Michigan, 51.6% of the vote. Donald Trump has 46.5% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 46,000 plus vote lead. Still, only 16% of the estimated vote in Michigan has been counted. In battleground Wisconsin, Harris is at 49.8% of the vote. Donald Trump is at 48.4% of the vote. She has a 15,000 plus vote lead. That's with more than a third, 35% of the vote counted in Wisconsin. In battleground North Carolina, Donald Trump maintaining his lead. He has 52% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 46.8% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 196,000 plus vote lead. That is with 2/3, 66% of the estimated vote in North Carolina counted. In battleground Georgia, Donald Trump maintaining his lead, 51.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris, 47.1% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 208,000 plus vote lead. That's with 79% of the estimated vote in from the battleground state of Georgia. We're now getting an update on the vote in North Carolina. Let's go to John King, actually, right now. John King, what can you tell us?
Well, Jake, you see the map, and again, as we get later in the night, this is where you start to see things change, especially if a candidate pulls out ahead in a state that not normally is in their lane, if you will. And by that, I'm going to refer to Iowa. Just a moment ago, I was showing you Iowa with the vice president ahead. Still competitive, but you see Iowa is now.
Drop a question in the chat. Don't remember to participate. Who you got? Do you care?
Now red. There was that late Iowa poll that showed the possibility of the vice president maybe being a little bit ahead of Donald Trump. No clear leader. It was a competitive poll. And this is a competitive race at the moment, 36%. This would be a surprise, right? We said Virginia's a surprise at how close it is. We'll see if it ends close, but it's a surprise at the moment. This is a surprise as well. Donald Trump just...
See what's going on Twitter a little. Twitter election updates. Latest, my man. Master of Work. This is probably going to be one of the biggest election scams ever. Hashtag what? Those are bizarre with bizarre margins. What are you saying, my guy? Let's go. At Real Donald Trump one is at 195. We're almost there. Need at Trump 24 supporter from blah 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 Kentucky. God, bro, almighty, bro. A lot of woke stuff going on Twitter. Donald Trump wins Montana. Tony Montana. All right, let's see. Okay, back to Explore. Top news. Okay, Trump doing the dance. Okay. What are they saying now? It is not fake, it's damn true that Elon Musk has changed the like button for the United States election. Oh boy, here we go. Oh shit. Ethereum going up. Crypto coin blasting off. Whoa. 10%. Oh shit, 14%. Dodge 27%. Shit. That's some election news, people. Like Trump gonna win.
3,800 votes ahead in battleground Iowa, a state he carried quite comfortably by 8 points,
see what this
4 years ago.
Projecting right now. Newsmax.
A response from this crowd. So when you ask me what is the vibe here, vibes being so important to the Harris for President campaign since the beginning in July, I would say it's starting to turn a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? A bit wary, a bit apprehensive. That's really the word I'm looking for. And we know that President Biden is also watching the returns in the White House, the forgotten man in tonight's balloting. He's placed calls to a number of the winners tonight so far, various mayors and governors-elect. And it was interesting also to see what the vice president spent her time doing today. She was at the vice president's residence, the U.S. Naval Observatory grounds in Northwest Washington. She spent part of the morning calling into 4 different radio programs, one in Pittsburgh.
So you keep an eye on it and you watch and you see what happens there, but it's interesting on this night. Now let's move over to the battlegrounds that matter at the moment. The Blue Wall states still being held by the vice president. The Sun Belt states, as we start to move west, North Carolina and Georgia are the 2 battlegrounds we care most about. They are at the moment.
It's coming down to the nitty-gritty.
States. Again, this was his closest battleground win. Biden was the closest to him back in 2020. It was 74,000 votes. He's just under 200,000 votes right now, 66% reporting. The former president at 52% of the vote. And again, Jake, as you come over and join me here, just let's remind.
Like Trump could pull off North Carolina, one of the key battleground states.
all right, where are they? And you see the bigger the circle means the more live outstanding votes, and the color tells you what's happening there. And at the moment, doesn't mean it will continue to be that way. You see Mecklenburg County, that's
fast internet.
In the Raleigh-Durham area, Winston-Salem area, a little bit out of Nashville. So more votes to be counted out there, but Donald Trump at the moment with a pretty healthy lead.
And you know, we have one of our excellent journalists is in Charlotte, is in the Mecklenburg County, Brianna Keeler, as the Board of Elections in Charlotte. Brianna, what can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. So at this point, Jake, about 100,000 ballots are in out of several hundreds of thousands of ballots. And that really could change any moment because we are expecting about 420 to 430,000 votes, which would have been early in-person votes, to have been closed out and posted here to the State Board of Elections. So we could be seeing that literally any moment. But what we see right now is a picture of a fraction of this key county. It's about 34,000 absentee ballots that were received before 5 p.m. yesterday, and it's also an upload of about 70,000 Election Day ballots from today. And you see right behind me, you see that red satchel right there. That is really the key here. These are being delivered by car. We're almost in sort of what is a drive-through situation here outside of the building of the Board of Elections here in the county. And these are delivered, these flash drives, they go inside through a very strenuous process, ultimately are uploaded to a computer that has never ever touched the internet, and then that is compiled and ultimately posted to the State Board of Elections, Jake.
All right, Brianna Keeler in Charlotte. Let's get more on North Carolina from Pamela Brown, who's at the voting desk. Pamela, what can you tell us?
Yeah, I'm just getting off the phone with an official in North Carolina there. This official says, look, first and foremost, it's going to take some more time to get results from across North Carolina's 100 counties. He said that this is going to be close. It's going to take some time. There are counties that haven't reported yet that are red, and there are counties that haven't reported yet that are blue. So let's dive a little bit more into the numbers we have. Wake County, this is the most populous county in North Carolina. It's right here. I am told so far more than 510,000 votes have been reported. That's according to the state's dashboard. So for context on that, there's 830,099 registered voters. So that's the most. It's likely going to be a lower number in the end. So they're actually making some headway there. But over here, in Mecklenburg, the home to Charlotte, they're having a logjam uploading the numbers to their site, I'm told, so far. And things are moving quickly, so this could change. But just a second ago, before I came on air, there were more than 84,000.
Is this a close election or a blowout? Let's see.
7,354 registered voters in Mecklenburg.
We have 81, 172 still.
That we're seeing bear out in the results there. And again, because they're having issues uploading on their site, which is bound to happen. And again, that state official there in the Tar Heel state.
It's so fishy upload.
In time.
All right, Pamela, thanks so much. John King, North Carolina, a lot of people thought that we would know pretty quickly this election season who won, but I'm not sure that we're going to know before midnight at least.
It's defined pretty quickly, right? Compared to 2020, it could be pretty quickly. We're at 10 o'clock hour. You're right. So you see, these states thought they learned a lot of lessons in 2020. Fewer mail-in votes this time around, so they thought to be faster. But human things happen. You see the officials all out there watching this. Brianna made a very key point. It's so sad that we have to make it, but that these voting machines are not connected to the internet. There's all these conspiracy theories that people are hacking into voting machines. The people who count our votes, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, agnostic, they do a good job in all the states. And North Carolina is one of the best. So where are we is the question. A 213,000 vote lead. And it's what Pam just laid out and Bree just laid out. Bree is here, Brianna is here, Mecklenburg County, 10% of the population, the largest of the 100 counties in North Carolina. So we have a long way to go, right? So can the Democrat come back is the question, right? You see that healthy Donald Trump lead. So your question is, can the Democrat come back? Well,
any update on Twitter? See what's going on in Pennsylvania. What's going on in Pennsylvania real quick, then we get back to the video. Stupid LeBron.
Because there's a lot of people waiting in line for a long time to vote, and some of them might be thirsty, so we brought a bunch of water.
Awesome, thank you, Paul. Paul, what made you decide to come to Villanova today?
Because there's a lot of people waiting in line for a long time to vote, and some of them might be thirsty, so we brought a bunch of water.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Paul, what made you decide to come to vote?
All right, Paul. Lines are crazy in Pennsylvania.
Did he figure it out?
Yes, he's going to vote here.
Provisional's not a bad deal for him. That's fine. Thank you.
They're serious about them voting in Pennsylvania. You heard? Why the crypto market blasting off?
Excuse me.
Hopefully tomorrow.
I did my rounds.
Anybody?
Giving out water in Pennsylvania. Okay, cool deeds.
Vote Obama! Vote one motherfucking time! Vote Obama!
No.
I got about this way, love. Over here, love. Go, let's destroy it. Go.
Pennsylvania voter. If Trump wins Pennsylvania, we all owe it to this man. Scott Presley registers 180,000 amnesty for a time vote as well. He worked tirelessly. Please send a thank you to Scott. Interesting. 4.4 million. A true patriot. Blah 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 blah. Okay, enough of my voice.
The vice president's at 65,000 votes there and a little bit of change. Okay. Mecklenburg County, the winner of Mecklenburg County is going to be over 300,000, close to 400,000 votes. So we have a very long way to go in Mecklenburg County.
So the point you're making here is that Joe Biden pocketed a net of about 200,000 votes last time.
Last time, a net of about 200,000 votes. Exactly the way to do the math. And we see right now, you know, we're waiting for a whole lot of votes, right? And so she's at 61%. And he was at 67%. If it ends up that way, Donald Trump's going to win North Carolina. You know, but there's that giant number of votes left out. So does the vice president's percentage? Remember, the president's 67. You know, does she get closer to 67? Number one, and then number two, what's the raw math in the margin, right? If Donald Trump, if she's below
the fake news, CNN, the fake news. The ratings is deplorable. They're out of here.
Oh, we'll have to see how that plays out.
Okay, what they're saying over here.
Donald Trump. 78% chance, according to the New York Times right now. They have him winning 295 electoral votes to Harris's 243. They have Trump winning the popular vote by 0.6%, which would be remarkable if that proves to be the case, based on all of the negative press that Hogan mentioned and all of the stuff that's been thrown at Donald Trump, all the rhetoric, all the nastiness. If he can actually win the popular vote and crush Harris in the Electoral College, which it looks like he might, the New York Times reporting that Donald Trump has a 78% chance of victory right now.
People are texting me that as well about the needle in the New York Times, and I'm sure it kind of
Combine
kills
that
them
with
a little to have to say that.
Combine that with the betting markets, which of course are not scientific. But
yes, go ahead.
The way people are feeling about it, you go on Polymarket right now, and it's pinned Donald Trump all the way to the top, Kamala Harris all the way at the bottom. No one's buying Harris, everyone's buying Trump. And you know, what can we figure? This is what people feel, not necessarily based on the results, but the results are probably leading people to feel this way clearly. And stuff like Rip was talking about, the needle pinned in favor of Republicans.
And Rick, I want to ask you too, because Kamala Harris has trotted out every celebrity under the sun that she could to try and get her across the finish line. You know, Oprah, you will never vote again. We heard last night in the closing.
Yeah.
You know, and you're in the West Coast and the Southern California. You know, the celebrity Holly Weird. You know, this has been sort of a crutch for her as a candidate.
Well, it could have backfired on her. Do we really care who Harrison Ford is voting for, or George Clooney says we should vote for, or who Lady Gaga is supporting? I mean, it's really no surprise that she would come out in favor of Kamala Harris. But we saw Hillary Clinton make that same mistake back in 2016. She had a big rally in Philadelphia the night before the election, and she brought out all the stars, and she lost Pennsylvania, and she lost the election. And a lot of people are making that comparison, saying that Kamala Harris spent too much time courting the celebrities and not enough time answering tough questions or connecting with real voters. And when Donald Trump kept asking that question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago, the answer for most people is absolutely not. And that could be a key reason why more people are picking Donald Trump in the voting booths than they are Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and think about the celebrities, too, that were endorsing the different candidates and what they actually do. I mean, Cardi B is going to sing some nasty lyrics to you. Oprah Winfrey is going to talk down to you and tell you how great her life is. But Elon Musk is going to build rockets. He's going to provide a car that you actually need, and Starlink, and provide internet for people who don't have it otherwise.
And bought Twitter.
Right. You think about Robert Kennedy Jr. and how he wants to make America healthy again. These are tangible things that people actually want, as opposed to the celebrities on the Democratic side.
I agree.
Sometimes sing you songs. Sometimes they don't perform, but they're there nonetheless.
Can we throw De Niro in?
Can I take a moment here just to pat myself on the back? When Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris, I went on Newsmax and said it wouldn't matter. They actually wrote it up in the New York Times.
Yes,
and
that's right.
it's on the. I'm on the record, and you know it doesn't matter. These celebrities don't do anything for the American public that have seen their grocery bills go up. And you know, what can you do for me? Celebrities, nothing. Basically, that's what it comes down to.
And look at the interview with Joe Rogan. Trump sat there for 3 hours in Joe Rogan's studio. Kamala Harris wouldn't do the interview with Joe Rogan unless Joe Rogan came to her and she wanted to limit it to an hour, which probably meant 28 minutes. But Donald Trump sat there for 3 hours, and he convinced Joe Rogan that he was real, he was authentic, he was funny, and he had a plan. He can answer any question. He's done this before. He's run successful businesses, and he's proven that he knows how to fix stuff and make things work. And he actually had a plan, and he was willing to sit there and take all those tough questions, and he convinced Joe Rogan to vote for him. And I think he convinced a lot of Americans that, hey, this guy is the answer. He's not a problem like Kamala Harris would be. This guy is the answer, and now the New York Times says Donald Trump has an 80% chance of winning this election, which is remarkable.
Watch that needle, Rick.
Yeah, and you know, we heard a lot of reports. It's of course anecdotal about dudes showing up at the polling locations today in different states, and you know, you got to think Joe Rogan with his audience and that you know conversation with Elon Musk, the conversation with J.D. Vance too. Obviously a big impact. And not just one event with Donald Trump, that interview. It was kind of rolled out over
And I think men want to protect their
days.
families and their wives. And, you know, when you economically are getting hammered by an administration, that points to who's going to help me and my family.
Yeah.
They want to be protectors.
Apparently the message got through. The message about the economy, the message about the illegal migrants who are criminals, who are targeting American citizens. The message got through.
Right. All right. We've still got a long way to go. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
No,
but it is, of course, as Rick indicated, we're attributing this to the New York Times. They are predicting 80% for Donald Trump. All right. Let's get out to the Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council, Art Del Cueto, and talk about one of the big issues that voters have been using to motivate them this time when they head to the polls. Art, great to have you with us.
Yes, sir. I'm with you guys. I'm pretty excited. I think we're going to get a win today, and it's not a win for Donald Trump. People need to understand it's a win for America. That's what it comes down to. Because look, the chaos that you've seen at the border. If we continue with 4 more years of this, it's just not going to be able to be withheld. It's been a mess. We've had individuals from 168 different countries come through, and the only people that have been winning is the drug cartels and the smugglers. It needs to end.
Anybody, Art, but when I've talked to Border Patrol agents over the last few years, the morale has been so low. You think about what happened, especially with the horseback Border Patrol officers, the way they were accused of whipping those Haitian migrants, never got an appropriate apology from the Biden.
Okay, let's see.
In the east, and we're moving across, and you see votes as far west as Montana and New Mexico and Arizona starting to come into the map. We haven't touched this one all night. Let's take a quick look out there in Arizona. I haven't said Maricopa County on an election night, and it's 10:24. That's an outrage. You see right here the Arizona stat coming in. It's very close right there. We're about half. says 50% of the vote. So that's pretty fascinating that Arizona's getting that vote in so fast. Let's get back there in a minute. Let's move more to the east in some of the battlegrounds that we know are absolutely key to the path to 270. And an interesting development, again, it's early, we're still counting votes, but Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, half an hour ago, were all still blue. Now Wisconsin has flipped to red only by 8,000 votes, and we're only at 47% reporting. And so there are two ways this happens. Either Donald Trump is overperforming someplace where he hasn't before, or we're just filling in the rural counties. So let's get a look at the map and see what we have here. Number one, let's look at the live outstanding vote. All right, so you got a big blue dot here in Milwaukee, big blue dot here in Madison, some blue dots out here in the area, but a lot of red dots as well. And so Donald Trump with a very narrow lead in Wisconsin, which, welcome. Again, 2 elections in a row. It's been 20,000 votes and change, 22,000 votes, 20,000 votes. This certainly shapes up to look like we're going to have another one of those, a photo finish in Wisconsin. A lot of outstanding votes, so it's hard to make any projections or analysis except to say Wisconsin, once again, is incredibly close. So let's come back out and move over to battleground Michigan. This one here, for those of you familiar, if you watch a lot of cable television, you've seen Debbie Dingell, the Democratic congresswoman from west of Detroit. Washtenaw County, Ann Arbor is her district. Over the weekend, she got a lot of attention for saying she was nauseously optimistic about Michigan. I was texting with her a little while ago. She says she's cautiously optimistic now, and I had to check. That's an upgrade. Cautiously optimistic is better than nauseously optimistic, according to the congresswoman. This is her district right here. This is one of the things I highlighted earlier. Washtenaw County is the home of Ann Arbor, home of the University of Michigan, home of a campus, been there several times, where they have a remarkable voting operation, encouraging young people to vote, encouraging students who live out of state to switch their registration to Michigan so they vote in a battleground state. If you're from a state that's not...
CNN host voice is crackling, so look like they might be in a little bit of trouble, like Trump might pull it off. But let's see if the machine kick in.
Up that way, that's a problem. Doesn't mean you can't make it up somewhere else, but if you're losing votes in one key county, losing percentages in one key county, you better make them up somewhere else and track below. Now, Michigan is the one state, to come back to the 2020 example, where you could argue the vice president has a little bit to lose, if you will. It's not Wisconsin, 20,000 votes. It's not Georgia, 11,000 votes. It's not Arizona, 10,000 votes. It's 154,000 votes. So if you want to argue a 2020 replay, the vice president has a little bit more to lose in a state Joe Biden won relatively comfortably when it comes to the battlegrounds. But still, if you're the vice president of the United States, you don't like the fact that Washtenaw County is so close. So now we come up to Ingham County. This is where you find Michigan State University, Lansing, the state capital. The combination of those two things, the state capital and a big university, normally says that's a Democratic area. And it is. It's at 59% if you round up for the vice president. But again, go back in time. Danger zone, 65% for the president 4 years ago. How much can she give up will become the question if you find more counties like that where she's underperforming the president of the United States. So another way to look at it is come back to 2024 and bring it up, and let's just ask that question. Is she overperforming the president anywhere? In a couple of places she is, and that's it. If you're losing in one place, the question is, can you make up the math somewhere else? So where is she overperforming at the moment? Kent County. That's Grand Rapids and the suburbs around it. 15 years ago, even in 2016, Donald Trump won this county. 15 years ago, reliably Republican, Western Michigan. You see right now, with 27% of the vote in, Trump is at 32%. The vice president at 66. You go back, you see the difference right there. But, the emphasis on the but, we're early in the count. So let's blank this out and come back out. But there are places, again, if you're losing in one key constituency, looks like at the moment she's losing with young voters in counties where those voters are important. Can you make it up somewhere else? Another place I would look, because of the size of the population, the second largest county in Michigan is Oakland County. These are the...
Okay, what I'm saying on Truth Social right now. California, 1 more hour. 28 minutes ago, so this was around 10 o'clock. Polls are open until 8 p.m. local. If you are in line by the cutoff, they must let you vote. Okay, Trump, you know, he ain't going to California, my guy. Back. Stay in line. Get in and vote.
Immediately hang up the phone and run out and vote. Like immediately.
Just bring the transistor radio or boombox with you while you go vote, and you can listen to the show.
Give Sean his worst radio ratings of
Twitter. See what's going on in Kamala. Showing two sides, you know. I hope they're right again. Yeah, I want to see the latest shit on Kamala. Democrats. Blah, blah, blah. Breaking news: Republican wins the election. Is it Ted Cruz won? Okay, that was expected, huh? Who's winning? OMG, it's real, it's damn true that Elon has changed the like button for the election. What the fuck? I had a Kamala tweet. Kamala page saying Kamala Harris. Okay. Well, you're running and you're not even tweeting out today. Could you imagine 5 million people see and you didn't even tweet 16 hours ago? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm lying. 3 hours ago. If you are in line before the polls close, stay in line. So repeating the same shit Trump said. Who is repeating? Four hours ago. I love Gen Z, and I'm grateful to our first-time voters for making their voice heard. Oh, so
Healthcare for women.
There's so much at stake here.
For myself,
this is my first presidential election.
First-time Gen Z voter in the state of Georgia.
First-time voter from California.
I'm so excited to vote for you.
I love your plan for an opportunity economy.
Accessibility to healthcare for women.
There's so much at stake here.
For myself, I see a leader in her. Excited to be able to vote for someone who believes in equality and rights for all.
Vote Harris Waltz.
I love Gen Z. Okay, thank you all for voting. You know your power through your voice, through your vote. And for anyone who hasn't voted yet, I'm telling you, you're going to enjoy the process. Well, I just wanted to call to check in and make sure you know where you can go vote today if you haven't already. Have you voted yet? Oh my gosh, yeah. Thank you. Sage, still a leader at every age that you are.
Okay, let's go back.
The Detroit, just north of, here's the Detroit, right here.
So we have
if you follow M&M, think about 8 Mile Road, 12 Mile Road, here's where we are. You come up into Oakland County, you come up into Macomb County. Oakland County, she's at 54% with 6 and 10 votes counted, 62%. So you go back in time and you look, 56%. Again, underperforming the President of the United States in a county that is absolutely critical. For 4 years ago, Joe Biden at 56.
That's it, right?
Right now, she's at 54. I said she had some to lose. When you go county by county by county and she's a little behind, you start to worry about the math. And then you see this, though. It's only 12%. If this one stays blue, the vice president's going to win Michigan. This is Macomb County, birthplace of the Reagan Democrat, if you will. It's the auto industry. It's General Dynamics. It's blue-collar people. It's a lot of union workers. The tug-of-war for the union leaders to try.
Auto ain't going red. Yeah, muscle car. Non-electric vehicle, motherfucker.
50%, somewhere in that ballpark of the union vote. We'll watch how that plays out. At the moment, again, only 12%, but the vice president is ahead at the moment. If you go back to 2020, that's why I point this out. If she's losing a little bit in Washtenaw, losing a little bit in Ingham, be nice to make it up in Macomb. Joe Biden got 45% right there. The challenge, the vice president's campaign would have been happy, I think, with a 45 there, actually, if they're doing everything else somewhere. We'll watch as that one plays out, if she can keep her lead in Macomb County. Again, here's an aberration. Donald Trump is not going to win Wayne County. We only have, 6,000 votes there, a little more than 6,000 votes when you add it up. This is Detroit, but I will say, Hamtramck and Dearborn are here in Wayne County. That's where hundreds of thousands of Arab Americans voted for Joe Biden in 2020. He won that vote overwhelmingly, and they are mad at the White House because of Israel and Gaza and Hamas. And so let's see what happens. This is 1% reporting. Wayne County will be blue at the end of the night. But the margin in Wayne County will matter, and will matter huge in deciding who wins the state. Again, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, getting 68%, Donald Trump just 30%. When we come to the end of the night, these numbers are meaningless. When we come to the end of the night, where's Harris and where's Trump? Where's Trump? Is he getting...
Until March of 1975, when Senator Ted Kennedy led Congress in cutting off all aid to South Vietnam. Within weeks,
has won Mitt Romney's open Senate seat in Utah.
Yep. Let's see. Okay. The way I put,
So they need to take it step by step when it comes to mass deportation.
But then we need people like Tim and Rogan and everybody else who's obviously shown through this election.
Them strike me up. Oh yeah, you stream me my shit. Damn PPD.
That's stupid. You know what I mean? We don't care who you sleep with, who you love, but do not come close to our children. And whatever happens in America, it happens in Europe.
Leave the kids alone.
So, if he will stop this, and he says, I'm going to stop this transition, craziness and madness, we're not going to finance it, we're not going to pay for it, it will be stopped in Europe. So what is this election about? For you Americans, it's about your family budget, inflation.
Let the extra clarine on. Start live. Everybody live, everybody trying to eat off the election, you know what I mean? Okay, what's going on Twitter right now? Welcome to the chat. Donald Trump is in the lead at the moment. Do you care who you're voting for? What's going on with CNN right here now? Ooh. What's up with the coverages?
Those things could change. Again, it's still early. We're not calling these counties as well. I want to zoom in here. This is Berks County. I'm going to zoom in. Reading, PA. This is a city where Hispanics are the majority here. 92% of the vote is in. Trump is up at 56. It's not a huge surprise, but what it shows is that he's overperforming. He won this county in 2016 and 2020.
Okay, let's check in on the numbers.
County will be blue at the end of the night, but the margin in Wayne County will matter, and will matter huge in deciding who wins the state. Again, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, getting 68%, Donald Trump just 30%. When we come to the end of the night, these numbers are meaningless. When we come to the end of the night, where's Harris and where's Trump? Where's Trump? Is he getting...
Okay, where are we? Let's go. So Donald Trump in the lead at the moment. What's that shot? Not going on.
And tonight he's overperforming. Again, watermarks for Biden is, guys.
Yeah, Mark Lauder was just here. You know, your staff Vice President Pence, and you're obviously a longtime Republican operative. You think there's not enough.
If NBC start panicking, that means Kamala is in trouble. So watch the tone of the host. Got a normally bias.
And so if you drop 40,000 votes in this state, maybe 6,000 or county, this 6,000 in another, next thing you know, you run out of options. I'll leave it to the brilliant minds in the decision desk to figure it out when that happens. I'm not nearly that good at math, but it started. with the young voters, it's starting to add up.
Well, let me just jump in on that, because there are several places, as we're starting to now at this point in the night get some trends across battlegrounds when it comes to exit polling, with all the necessary caveats that you have heard by now. And there's a few places where former President Trump is making improvements from his performance 4 years ago. It is Latino voters, as you talk about, Mark. It is voters under 30, as you talk about.
Okay, let's check out what's going on in these battleground states on Twitter. Reminder of a certain state look like the last time, I promise you. It's not over. Who the hell is this? Negros. One. Okay. Democrats, Republican, I'm calling it NE3, GA, and North Carolina for Trump. Remember, all Kamala Harris needs to win is PA, MI, Washington, and New England 2nd District. That's her 270 flat. GA and North Carolina will be bonus. So I actually have to win a lot there, buddy. I need to see GA and Nancy call for Trump so I can breathe. So North Carolina, and so the focus is on North Carolina and Georgia. So let's see what's going on with them. Why this thing keep going on? North Carolina, Georgia. That's the focus.
Just like hers, and she looked at someone who was much different. He wasn't Ivy League. He wasn't all smooth. He was relatable and
welcome, and hit the like button. Say what up. Wow, Bitcoin.
That's she thought was an ad plus as opposed.
Bitcoin going through the roof.
He was. And, you know, I don't know if it was the right call or not. I think they're both terrific people. Either way, they're going to be around. Shapiro's not going anywhere. You may see him on a ballot in the future.
Yeah, let's check in on the crypto market. Crypto up means is projected Trump win, right? More pro-Trump.
Obviously, we're disappointed about North Carolina and Georgia because there was a real feeling that there was such a good ground game compared to what the Trump
And to be
team
clear,
was
we
doing.
haven't called those.
No, we haven't. But I'm looking internally at the numbers,
Sure.
and they're not as hopeful as I would like them to be. I still think we have a path, obviously, in the blue wall states, and I don't think anybody knows how Nevada is going to turn out. And I think that is another one. We could have 4 states that determine the presidency that are all decided by less than a half a point.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that.
That's so 2024, Senator.
How's that?
Let's go to NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber now in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Ellison, how are things going there?
Hey, Lester, so we're starting to get initial numbers from the early voting in this county. Initially, they were a little delayed in uploading some of those to the public because they said they were having difficulties with their software of getting a clear image. They were going line by line with a Republican watcher, a Democrat watcher, and other election officials getting those votes up. But now they have those reported, and based on the percent of early votes that are out, Harris is leading in the early votes that they have tabulated in this county so far, but still they haven't counted any of the precincts that reported today. That process still happening here. So you see these people coming in. They're all people who have come from the different precincts in this county. There are 156 precincts in Gwinnett County. What they're dropping off right now, you see these purple bags here. Those are provisional ballots, in addition to a lot of blue bags. And the blue bags, I'm told, have official election material that had to be returned, pamphlets, things that sort of gave directions to the election workers. All of that stuff coming in now. It's coming in waves. The first wave of stuff that was brought in from precinct captains on were the memory cards with the vote. That's something that election workers tell me is a way, a thing that's changed over the years. They said they used to get everything, the election materials that had to be returned.
So like a little bit more get put into security this time around. What do you think?
Clean up, it would take a little longer for those memory cards to come in. Now they get the memory cards first, then the rest of the materials. The memory cards, They're actually in all these little bags. You see them unzipping there. Those are from 156 different precincts. Each precinct has at least 2 memory cards that have the vote count from today on them. They go in here, they get processed, and they go out to the public. So they're still deep in that process right now. But let's go again to the back, because this is where we see a lot of activity happening on and off, whether it's the early votes being processed and scanned and tabulated, or
Shout out if you're listening in the live. Big up yourself, you know.
it's being reviewed. So remember, the thing that we were watching in this county was what would the margins be like, because it leans Democrat. We expected Democrats to carry this county, but ultimately back in 2020, Donald Trump got 40% of the vote in Gwinnett County. And what Republicans were hoping was if they could notch that up by a couple percentage points, they could cut in to Harris's margins. And then if they also did well in Republican strongholds, could potentially carry the state. What we're seeing in turnout is turnout so far has exceeded the turnout numbers in 2020. And right now, based on what has been entered, Trump is holding at about 40%. So right now, those extra percentage points haven't come. Could that change? Yes, that's Tom Yamison's lane. We'll leave him on that. Over here, though, is where they're going through some of the different election material. And they've also been sorting provisional ballots. You can see them in the back here, Savannah and Lester. They're just busy working. They will be here late at night. They expected the last bit of stuff to come from the precinct to get
Gwinnett County.
Savannah.
All right, Ellison, thank you so much. We're going to take a short break right here. Many more poll closings coming up at the top of this hour, including California and its whopping 54 electoral votes, and a look at who's ahead in the race to 270 on election night.
Ahead with 84% of the estimated vote in the Tar Heel state. In Virginia, Kamala Harris still in the lead, 49.9% of the vote. Donald Trump has 48.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris is maintaining a 55,000 plus vote lead with 3/4 of the vote in there. In Virginia, 75% of the estimated vote. And then in New Mexico, Kamala Harris.
Gotta find a different stream. Videos. Okay. Let's try this again. Live analysis. Was where I was. Okay, so they have Trump now. Oh crap, 207. So let's update our main screen right here. So Trump 207. Well, like this election gonna get called tonight. What the hell? Okay, 207. Harris still at 91. Interesting. So it's 207, 91. Boom. Okay. Some live commentary.
To blue instead, Republican incumbent Ted Cruz wins re-election, cruising to his 3rd term against Democrat Colin Allred, a congressman from the Dallas area, a former Tennessee Titans middle linebacker.
Okay, let's get off that.
Ty Pickens re-election for Wicker in Mississippi. An update now from one of the reddest states in the country, Wyoming. There, incumbent Republican Senator John Barrasso wins his 4th term as he defeats Scott Morrow, a union official who touts his black belt in Taekwondo on his campaign website. Barrasso re-elected in Wyoming. Some more projections to bring you. Beginning in Missouri, there, incumbent Republican Senator Josh Hawley, perhaps best known for being the first senator to object to certifying the 2020 election results in favor of Joe Biden. He defeats Democrat Lucas Kunz to win re-election in Missouri. Meantime, in Nebraska, this special election, Pete Ricketts, a former governor there, he defeats Preston Love Jr., a former campaign manager for Jesse Jackson's presidential campaign in 1984. This is to serve out the term left by retired.
That's not showing our video.
take a look at where things stand. Again, as you can see, Lester, Republicans with one pickup, but we continue to watch Montana and Ohio so closely. Again, could Ohio be a state where we see a split ticket? Split tickets, as we've been saying throughout the course of this evening, have been diminishing.
Democrats came in with a tough map to defend.
Very tough map to defend, bracing for potential losses. And again,
okay, let's see if ABC's panicking. ABC panicking. Oh shit is real.
This is ABC News coverage of Election Night 2024. Here again, David Muir.
Of election night here, we do want to call another state, Kansas. The 6 electoral votes of Kansas will go to former President Donald Trump. In Nebraska tonight, Donald Trump picks up 3 electoral votes, and John Carl, explain to the audience how that works in Nebraska. They split these up.
They split them up by
Let's check in big
winner. So there is a single electoral vote coming out of Nebraska. It's in Omaha. Sometimes they call it Obamaha because Obama won it, helped him win the presidency in 2008. So look, if we're looking at a scenario where Kamala Harris's path to winning the presidency is to win the blue wall and not to win any of the other battleground states in the Sun Belt, it would be 270 votes to 268 votes.
Senator.
The single vote that would put her over the top would be in Omaha. It would be that split electoral vote in the state of Nebraska.
Okay.
Of course, we got a long way to go tonight before we're at that point. But that's why Republicans tried to change the rules in Nebraska. Lindsey Graham made a trip all the way out to Nebraska to try to convince
this election cycle.
Yes, this election cycle. Donald Trump got involved.
It's like every minute a different state trending on X. Just now it was North Carolina and Georgia. Now it's back to Pennsylvania, along with Wisconsin and Michigan. What's going on in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan? Let's see. Okay, Pennsylvania. What? Is this right? Trump 19 ahead, 85%? No. There's now an 85% chance Trump wins Pennsylvania. Elon has changed. Like, what the hell? Just drop another 5,000 Harris ballot off in Texas onto Pennsylvania. Stupid. We popping bottles like I scored a win. Just cast my 50 ballot in Michigan, Pennsylvania. Here I come. Pennsylvania do not play. Oh man, this election memes be funny. Pennsylvania do not play with me right now, right now, right now. Okay, see that already. Trump wins. Congrats to Scott Presler for Pennsylvania. He got 108,000 amnesty to register for the first time. God damn it. I need to watch this motherfucker's speeches. What are he saying? What did he tell those people? Ooh, you like you want to eat somebody? Wow. Fucking die! Found! Oh wow! Please don't eat me. So aggressive. Can't believe I saw these already. So let's go on latest. Latest for the greatest. Now let's see. All right, pardon my AD.
Ben Sass. An update from North Dakota now. There, incumbent Republican Senator Kevin Cramer wins his second term, defeating engineering professor Katrina Christensen. Cramer reelected in North Dakota. So what do all these results mean for the magic number that Republicans need to take control of the U.S. Senate? Remember, they started out the night needing 2 Democratic seats to flip the chamber. Right now, that number with a pickup in West Virginia is 1. And currently, as of this moment, Republicans are leading in 4 races.
Victory speech.
ABC's panicking.
Thanked Latino voters in this state, which he says have proven all the political prognosticators wrong.
John Quinones on the ground there in Texas. John, thank you. And look at the margin there. That's a much bigger margin than even Beto O'Rourke.
Bringing you commentary and election updates. Let's go.
2 points, much bigger margin this time, and that is because Colin Allred really underperformed in some of the big cities. So let's take Harris County. This is home to Houston. You can see the 538 benchmark that we have has him at 58. He got 53. Let's go over to Austin. This is Travis County. 74% is what he needed to meet. 71 is where he was. David, I will tell you, Lindsay already said it, but Ted Cruz, deeply unpopular, even in this own state. He's tried to rebrand his image to be more approachable, to be more bipartisan. I don't think there's anywhere else in this country where Cancun was talked about more than in this state. You remember those images of Ted Cruz at the airport after that deadly winter storm. Colin Allred read ad after ad on that, but ultimately Ted Cruz remained victorious in this state.
Rick Klein, you're over at the big board as well. What are you seeing in some of these key battlegrounds? How's Pennsylvania looking at this hour?
Yeah, Pennsylvania right now is still a problem for Kamala Harris. An advantage Donald Trump, 100,000 vote margin, a lot left of the vote. And some of these bubbles will tell you the story about what's left. 175,000 votes left in Philadelphia is our estimate. Another 193,000 in Delaware County, Delco, a place where Harris is winning very big. Bucks County, still a lot of votes to be counted there, 240,000. So that's what's keeping this as a competitive state right now. But we've seen the numbers shift as more of the Republican parts of the state have fallen in line for Donald Trump. It's been almost consistent across the board. Again, not the biggest counties, but places where he's been able to build on his lead consistently.
I think that's a good example. What you pulled up Perry County. Just look at the threshold, the 538 threshold of where he needs to be. And this is the story of the night. He's outperforming slightly in all these rural counties. I think we're seeing this in a number of the swing states, which is helping him to build these margins against Kamala Harris.
That's exactly right, and it adds up over time, and I think that's similar to what we've seen in Michigan, similar in Wisconsin. Michigan doesn't have a lot of vote in right now, but you're seeing some areas where Donald Trump in the past has not been that strong. This is more of a swingy type county. You can see where Joe Biden was. You see where Kamala Harris is. You see where Donald Trump was. You see where.
Is Democrats starting to panic as yet? I don't know. Drop a one in there like if you've seen anything.
Voters have had the opportunity to vote for him or vote against him several times now. So again, it's not the big urban areas. That's going to go pretty Democratic. And it's still possible that Harris pulls out enough of the vote in Madison and Milwaukee where we're still waiting on vote. But it becomes difficult as time goes by. And that really is the story that's developing now in North Carolina. When we look at our remaining votes, these blue dots have been getting smaller throughout the night. And when you really get into it, you're talking about 115,000 votes. OK, that if you win that 2-1, you start to chip away at that 145,000 vote lead. But there may not be enough of those blue dots left in a Georgia or North Carolina based on what we're seeing tonight.
That needs some context.
All right, we'll continue to drill down on these blue wall states with Rick Klein and Rachel Scott over at the board. We're closing in on 11 o'clock here in the east, 8 o'clock on the west. 4 more states set to close, including California, with its 54 electoral votes. Your local news is next, and we'll see.
What is this panicking? Lots of stuff going on. Let's see. American Press. Playing music. Okay. My God. Let's read the chat. Donald Duck. Blah, blah, blah. Election rhetoric.
Area resident, so you get to weigh in on this too, and you too, Senator. I mean, would you have expected that Virginia would take this long to call? I mean, is this concerning? Does it give you any other trend lines?
No, I mean, I saw a lot of energy, and I live in Northern Virginia as well. I've seen a lot more Trump signs in people's yards where 4 years ago, 8 years ago, you would have never.
Let's go, Virginia.
So I think there was a little more of an emboldened activity, but you know you're not going to win that area. But I think this does point to what we were talking about we see going on in Philadelphia, which we see going on in some of the other Charlotte areas. She's underperforming in the metro areas, which is where she needs to overperform.
I think when it's all counted, when everything comes in Northern Virginia, and Chuck's not here, so I'm a little nervous. But I think she'll end up winning Virginia by a comfortable margin. And I think when you actually analyze the data, what you're going to see is there was more enthusiasm in the rural areas of Virginia than there were there was for Biden. I mean, I think we need to like start saying out loud that, you know, what is different between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Everybody thinks they're exactly the same on policies, but one is a woman of color and the other is a white man that everybody was really comfortable with, that were moderates and knew him well and had known him for decades. So I think you're seeing more Trump support in some of the areas where Biden could cut in. And you're not, but Virginia's going to be fine. She's going to win Virginia.
But you might see that maybe in like a Lackawanna County or something in Pennsylvania, that same dynamic that you're talking about.
Yeah.
We shall see. Okay. We want to pause just a moment. We've got a lot more to get to. Top of the hour, we're going to have the big poll closings in California. Got an election alert. Poll closing in about 20 seconds or now. So there'll be
California, blue state, right?
See, California, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, those will all be closing here in about 10 seconds. And then, of course, we'll have the latest characterizations. We're going to pause for a moment while some of our East Coast stations go to their local news now.
Okay, let's see what's going on. Let's click on that one. Let's see. CBS.
4 years.
Vice President Harris.
This has not been about a fight that is against something. This is about
Fair use, fair use.
Former President Trump.
we're going to defeat Kamala Harris, and we're going to make America great again.
Defeat Kamala. America great again. Okay, Maggie, where's the content? Let's go.
And I'll mention, it just happened right now. It's just as we were speaking. So, Washington, and there we go. So we're seeing races. Washington, as soon as the polls close, and this is just how reliably blue these states are. I'm going to just guess zero. Yes, there's zeros on these. There's probably zeros on California as well. That's because the AP has such confidence in these states. As soon as results start coming in, they're going to be so overwhelmingly blue that they feel comfortable calling these races as soon as the results.
Sound like a scam to me.
Going to be the senator in California for 6 years, and it appears
Little Adam Chef. Little Lion Adam.
to see a, so no numbers there.
Yeah, that nickname for Adam Schiff, I just forgot.
Well, going to be starting off her 6-year Senate tenure in the state of Washington. Andy.
All right, very, very interesting. West Coast, we're following it very closely. Also, we're going to check back in with you over the course of the evening as we've had over the last several hours as well. But we appreciate your
Hit the like button if you're passing through.
here as we're hearing now west to east. As I do want to put up just this, one of the most recent calls there in Idaho being called for.
Yeah, dude had a ugly. He have like a bat ears. He looked like a bat.
Electoral votes going for Donald Trump in Idaho for electoral votes is kind of the balance of power as we talk about all those electoral votes being cast up. So we're hearing different ones about.
Like Kamala looks a Photoshop and Trump does it.
In Maine, we're talking about. All right, and we're also getting more about Washington as well. So let's continue to follow the latest here as you can see just the excitement within this watch party there in West Palm Beach in Florida at this watch party as they maybe see some of these results come in themselves, see the excitement of there as instead on the other side in the watch party at Howard.
Keep watching, I'm gonna grab something to eat.
Eventually getting the decision, 12 electoral votes in her favor going for the Vice President Kamala Harris on the West Coast. As you did hear from Austin Westfall, those going blue very, very quickly. The blue for Washington, we just see it go blue for Oregon. Let's bring in Austin one more time here as we're getting this about this. What do we make of this decision? And give me a breakdown of this here, Austin.
Yeah, just like the Senate, just like we were just talking about, as soon as the polls closed, the AP feels confident enough to call these Western states in favor of Harris. California has the most electoral votes in the country. We're talking about 54 votes coming from California alone. Washington is going to have 12 electoral votes. Oregon not being called yet. It's likely blue. Let's go in and let's see what we're working with here. It looks like Harris is.
Let's check in on the cryptocurrency. So we're at 74.22. Let's refresh and see. Dogecoin was at 29% up. Bitcoin 9.2. Solana 14. I see. Solana up. Wow. 30% now. Interesting. Crypto going through the roof. Dogecoin mooning. Department of Efficiency. Government efficiency, right?
Now we're at 60% of the votes tabulated. Trump appearing to have just over a 2% lead in Wisconsin, neighboring Michigan. Michigan was leaning blue not too long ago. Now it looks like it's leaning red, and Trump is over 4%. That's with 28% of the votes counted. So that is and we just saw it update a little bit. It looks like Trump might have gained a little bit of ground slightly there. 28, just over 1/4 of the votes counted in Michigan. Pennsylvania, 19 electoral votes at stake. This one was a tight one for quite.
Michigan.
I'm going to take the second question first. It was about mail-in ballots and if we've seen.
Let's go back. Where was it?
Our projections currently.
You got it. Okay, so there's your needs, right? Needs 51% of the estimate. That's not that hard to do, okay? So the trouble is, given what I just showed you in those key Democratic counties, right now she's tracking it, getting 44% of the outstanding votes. So again, still a lot of vote to come, still some uncertainty here, but right now not immediately on track.
And because we only have 61% of the vote in statewide, that's why we have not made a designation in this race. It is still a toss-up based on our estimates.
Last time we checked was 207.91. Let's see an update from CNN. How much votes we got?
2 of the 3 blue wall states. That's Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. 2 of the 3.
No, we had 211 Trump, 145 Harris.
The Sun Belt states. And again, Harris campaign is not ruling this out, but you show this here. Donald Trump, 142,000 votes ahead in North Carolina. I can show you the live outstanding votes. And when I show you the live outstanding votes, you will see some pretty big circles in the blue areas, large metropolitan areas and suburban areas where the Democrats do quite well. I just want to say, at 85% reporting statewide and 142,000 vote lead, is it mathematically possible? Are enough votes out there? Yes. When you get to this point in an election in a state Donald Trump won twice, you start to think, okay, this looks like it did in 2016 and in 2020. It looks more like 2016 than it did in 2020.
Okay, Harris running up 145.
To figure out, how many votes are out, what percentage are we getting. But if you're looking at the North Carolina map, I'd rather.
Look like Republican about to win the House. They only need 2 more for the Senate. Sorry, not House, Senate.
Not as many mail-in ballots. We won't have as many large percentages of Democratic votes coming in the days after. But Donald Trump was ahead by more than 200,000 votes at this point 4 years ago. So let's just be cautious for the sake of being cautious. And yet, at the same time, I just said that, I want to tell you he's 136,000 votes ahead in a state that was decided by 11,000 votes last cycle. 88% of the vote is in. So where is the live outstanding vote? Live outstanding vote. This is where in the Harris campaign, you're just hoping that over
Georgia look crazy like Trump.
Report not just their votes, but a lot of votes. You're hoping turnout, exceeds your expectations. So you see down here in the Savannah area,
that's Atlanta.
Races are won or lost for Democrats. Atlanta and the suburbs around it. So let's come out of that map. And again, here's the key point. Fulton County, 90% of the vote is in. Yes, she's getting 72% of the vote. Just want to check, compare that. It's a little below where President Biden was, but it's close. But remember, he won the state by 11,000 votes.
Okay,
so she can't really afford
Kamala running up on Trump right there.
Anyway, you move over to Cobb County, 91% in. This is a big suburban.
Cobb County, Kamala leading.
You have some change to make up there. She's at 57% if you round that up. The President of the United States was at 56, so she's running equal, maybe a little bit ahead there. So let's come over to DeKalb County.
Is Kamala going to get Trump out of here in Georgia?
7% left. Again, large, very Democratic area. You see the 81% there just to the...
DeKalb County, Kamala kicking Trump ass, 81%.
81, 83. You might think at home that's not that big of a difference in a race that's very close. Yes, it
I don't know why that video is not trying.
Can be a big difference. So we have to watch at the moment. Let's come out. Let's do it this way. Come back to.
Okay, go back right here.
So there's ways it could happen if Wisconsin and Georgia aren't happening.
Thank you. You made it very clear. Let me bring in Robert Costa, who has some new reporting real quick. Thank you.
Real quick, it's really interesting to imagine all the different scenarios, but I've been talking with my top Democratic sources close to the Harris campaign. They say Jen O'Malley Dillon, who's running the Harris campaign, now believes the blue wall is the path to victory. She sent out a memo stating that, and that's going around the top Democrats in Congress. Some of the top Democrats in Congress privately within recent minutes have told CBS News that they believe the blue wall is the way she gets to the White House. She must win, they believe, those 3 states. I just spoke to a source close to Speaker Pelosi. When I sat down with President Biden in August, he only name-checked one Democrat, Speaker Pelosi, the former speaker, for nudging him out of the race. A source close to her says she's watching everything. She's, quote, still optimistic. Still optimistic. Perhaps one of the most powerful Democrats. That's her phrase, based on a source close to her watching the returns.
Bob, it's interesting. They say she must win, but do they think she can win? There's such a big difference there. You expect people to be optimistic at this point, but it's
come down to the turnout, Gail, in cities and labor. Cities, labor, and they got to eat into the Republican vote in the suburbs. They're still optimistic, from Pelosi to others, that she can do it, but they see a narrowing path, but it's still viable.
Okay, we're going to Google. We're going to update based on Google right now.
So there's a lot of things that we can see with the data and our reporting, but it's strategists with close context that know about the ground game, like CBS News political contributor Joel Payne and political contributor Leslie Sanchez, want to bring you into that conversation. Joel, what are you?
Google 179, Kamala 214, Trump.
Look, that path to 270 is narrow. I thought it was narrow coming in to the evening. I've said that Harris was a low ceiling, high floor candidate coming into this race. I think that holds true. I think Jen O'Malley Dillon's memo is correct, that it seems like the blue wall is the path. And I will say this. I think Democrats are kind of coming to grips with a stubborn reality that some of the bets that were made in this cycle may just not pay off. That doesn't mean Kamala Harris will lose, but it does mean that some of the bets maybe around abortion and some of the bets around Donald Trump maybe receding in public regard just did not come to fruition. There is still a path despite all that. And I remember in 2020, many Democrats around this time of night felt maybe similar to looking at the map right now, the same way that they felt 4 years ago, the same way they feel now. And that race was able to be pulled through. But I think Ed's point is right. I think there are narrow paths to victory, and I think Democrats are bearing down for what could be an extended process here when you get past those blue wall states, looking at Nevada, seeing what happens with those votes. The ballot curing, I think, will be a really key issue. And you even look at that Reid machine in Nevada that many Democrats rely upon to deliver key votes in that culinary workers union. Those will be the places where Democrats will look if they plan on delivering an electoral college victory here.
Yeah, I mean, as I look at the map and the path to victory, if she cannot win Wisconsin, in other words, if there's a piercing of that blue wall, she would have to win Arizona.
Right.
And so that's really what it would come down to at this point. Nevada's still too small at 6 EVs. She'd need Arizona, and I have to go back to the magic wall or the data desk and figure out what's happening in Arizona, because I don't have a good sense yet about what's happening in Arizona. Major and Anthony, we'll go to them in just a second, but let me touch base with CBS News political analyst Leslie Sanchez, because she is with us. And Leslie, I know you've been with us for most of this conversation. We heard Cecilia's reporting and more about the Hispanic vote. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing that the Democrats are cratering their support among Latino voters, and it's across the board. It starts in Texas. You look at the Rio Grande Valley, you're seeing stronger support leaning toward Trump along those border counties than he did, performing better than he did in 2020. And I expect that to move into the Sun Belt, into Nevada, where you have the culinary unions, into Arizona, where you have a lot of working class, middle class Latino voters. I expect that to tip toward Trump as well because of this growing middle class. They are second, third generation Latino dominated. Ed O'Keefe talked about the growth of Latino men on the Republican side, and they are tilting over toward Trump. And because of the economy, because of high inflation, and some of them do talk about border security, but that economic inflation number and feeling that pinch is really what's driving that all the way across. You can even argue in Florida, along that I-4 corridor, the Puerto Rican vote, you saw them come eventually aligned under Trump. They were not affected by those, kind of those Madison Square Garden components. And I think expect that in the suburbs of Philadelphia. My reporting says they are coming out for Trump as well.
Leslie Sanchez, thank you. And we have a race alert at this hour. CBS News rates North Carolina as lean Republican. And so while the vote count is still coming in, our CBS News models indicate this race leans Republican for Donald Trump. Remember, this was the one of the 7 battlegrounds that he won 4 years ago and is performing well in the rural areas of North Carolina. You could argue North Carolina was a must-win for Donald Trump tonight, and we rate it as lean Republican at this hour while it is still early in the night. Let's go now to Major Garrett to explain why.
So lean Trump for North Carolina. How did that happen? We should remind ourselves 5 visits by the former president to North Carolina in the closing week of this campaign, underscoring its importance as the Trump team looked at the electoral map of the country. So here we have 86% of the vote in. This is the actual vote as it has been tabulated. Here is our estimate of where this will land when all the votes are counted. 51.7 for Trump, 48.3 for the vice president. Where's the outstanding vote? We still see some outstanding vote there. But again, the numbers keep getting smaller and smaller. Mecklenburg, yes, there's vote out there, but it's simply not.
Let's check in on Bitcoin.
In North Carolina, our estimates suggest she needs 59% of that outstanding vote, and we project, when it's all said and done, and Nora, you joined me over here. Great to have you back at the wall. 48%. So that's a big gap. 59% she needs. 48% is our current estimate based on outstanding vote, historical patterns, and exit poll data.
So you heard Robert Costa's reporting that Jen O'Malley Dillon has now sent out a memo. She's the campaign manager for the Vice President Harris, and says they still.
Why is it?
That's where the total is currently. This is our estimate. We have it at 50.3 to 49.7. How does that compare to 2020? We remember how close it was. That's overperformance of Joe Biden. Things presently look good in Arizona. And here
for the Democrats.
For Kamala Harris. Here's where the outstanding vote is. Maricopa County. Let's be specific. How much vote is still outstanding? Maricopa County, more than 1 million votes. Maricopa County in 2020 accounted for 61% of the statewide turnout. Let's go down to Tucson's Pima County. How much is outstanding? 273,000. So let's go back to that basic question. What does
to 2024, and let's just pop in this and see where's Harris underperforming. Where is Harris underperforming Joe Biden? In a state Joe Biden won by 11,000 votes, you can't really underperform. And she's underperforming in 28 of the 159 counties, right? So we have more votes to be counted. We're not done yet. This is not a final glimpse. But you see out in these rural areas, this is part of the secret of Joe Biden's win in 2020. He got his butt kicked by Donald Trump in these small rural counties, but he did better than Hillary Clinton. Blue-collar workers, rural workers, people who work with their hands, Joe Biden did just a little bit better. And in a state decided by 11,000 votes, that can matter. So again, you asked me about the map. we're not done. We're going to count. The Harris campaign will update us. They know their counties. We have people on the ground asking the people, our vote desk with Pam Brown, what votes are still outstanding. But if you look at this map right now, I want to switch. Well, let's just check real quickly where we are in Wisconsin. 61%. I want to check Milwaukee. This is where, okay, only a 53% in Milwaukee. Black turnout in Milwaukee better be huge in the uncounted vote for the vice president to catch up. I talked to a Democrat out there earlier who said it was good. They didn't say it was great. They said it was good. And I asked if it was great, and they said it was good. So we'll see how that plays out. Dane County, 74%. We're at 91%. Again, not to be a broken record, 75%. A percentage point can matter, underperforming by just a little bit. And so she's losing in Wisconsin. Got a ways to go there. She's holding on in Michigan at the moment. We're still only at 32%. So we got a long way to go in battleground Michigan. We'll come back out here. And this one is the biggest. I'm going to show you why in just a second. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we've been saying it for weeks. 19 electoral votes, the largest of the battleground states out there. 72% in, 178,000 vote lead. That's a healthy lead. Now, again, let's look. Let's look. There's a lot of votes. This is what happened. Remember 2020. Donald Trump was ahead in Pennsylvania. This was what brought Joe Biden back. They counted the votes, mainly in Philadelphia, but also in the suburbs around it. That was 2020. There were a lot more early mail-in votes then to be counted than there are now, but we shall see as we come out. And Jake, before you jump in, and please ask me anything you want, one little quirky thing. Trump's leading in Northampton. Harris is leading in Erie. Those are the two swing counties that have been. So just watching that. But here's what I want to say right now. I just want to bring this up to show the stakes for the Harris campaign right now as the count in North Carolina gets higher and in Georgia gets higher. The importance if Donald Trump, this is a hypothetical, but if Donald Trump holds these two, and he won that one both times, 2016 and 2020. He won this in 2016. He lost it by 11,000 votes in 2020. So not at all inconceivable in history and when you look at the numbers tonight. Excuse me. If that happens, Harris cannot lose that. Why can she not lose that? Because 251 plus 19 makes Donald Trump president of the United States. So the rest of them wouldn't matter. I don't mean your votes don't matter in those other states. But in terms of the path to 270, if he holds those leads he has right now in those two states, which are healthy leads, she cannot afford to lose that. Just cannot. And at the moment, as we switch maps, please jump in if you want. I'm just going to switch back to the national map so we can watch the count.
Okay. I want to stick on Pennsylvania and bring in Kate Baldwin, who is at a vote counting center in the best city in the world, Philadelphia. Kate, what are you learning?
It's the only area where you're allowed to be biased. We've just learned, as John was focusing in on the outstanding mail-in ballots. That is something that we have all been waiting for. I've just learned from a source close to the counting process that the
And here's what she says specifically about Pennsylvania. She says that we overperformed turnout expectations in Philadelphia and overperformed in our early vote expectations in Bucks County, one of those key collar counties, those key suburbs of Philadelphia. She says we don't have election day results from Philadelphia, but we do know that we overperformed turnout expectations there and have seen especially high turnout in places with non-white and student populations. One thing they're keeping a close eye on right now.
What are you
about
seeing
Michigan
in the exit
particularly?
polling
They say the city of Detroit
about
won't
the
be
Latino
reporting out until roughly
Yeah, we wanted to look across all three blue wall states that John was just walking us through, looking at this slice of the vote, the Latino vote in the blue wall states. Now, they only make up 6% of the electorate in each of these states, but look at the difference in the...
Trying to see what's like, son.
David Chalian, what are you seeing in the exit?
And that's where, at least according to her memo, which effectively said goodbye to the staff for the night, said we'll do it again late into the night and start again strong in the morning. That's where they are as this night heads toward midnight.
All right, Peter, thank you. Now, without further ado, let's go to the hosts of Pod Save America, Democrats John Lovett and Dan Pfeiffer, both White House veterans. And Dan, I know you to be a number cruncher, and I wonder what you're thinking about the numbers that you're seeing. You just heard what the Harris campaign is saying, but the vibe check is that this path is narrowing significantly and that it's blue wall or bust at this point for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, that seems right. And you look at the numbers, it's very clear that Trump is overperforming in rural counties, and Harris is overperforming in suburban counties. And what is going to maybe the deciding factor here is primarily going to be what is the turnout and the vote margins coming out of Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Detroit. And if they are what we think they are, then she has a very clear, albeit narrow, but clear path to be the next president of the United States.
John, let me ask you about what we've been observing. Young voters, particularly male voters, who seem to be breaking for Trump and, in fact, winning the youth vote, according to our exit polls. Does that surprise you? What's your take on that dynamic?
That would be surprising. I think that's another reason to drink. But I do think that I
You're
think
drinking
it's
alone,
pretty
John.
early. I think that's fine. That's fine. I think it's pretty early to be drawing conclusions based on the exits and trying to figure out what happened with specific demographics. I think where we're at is this was always going to be close. It is close right now. I think there was some hope based on vibes that perhaps this wouldn't be as close based on some late polling and some late momentum and a terrible event at Madison Square Garden. Could we hope that maybe this night wouldn't be as long? And the answer is no. The polls largely were showing a very tight race, and that's what...
Donald Trump projected to win North Carolina.
Afterwards, the thing that strikes me is we're going through these states. The thing you heard in the last week from the Harris people is that we're on the ground. Our labor allies are on the ground. Our progressive groups are on the ground. Our LGBTQ groups are on the ground. We're knocking on doors, and we don't see the Trump people anywhere. All right? Trump did.
Down to Pennsylvania.
All right, Dan Pfeiffer, John Lovett, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
And we have another call to make. I believe we're going to get a state of Washington presidential call. Let's see where we are. NBC News now projecting that Kamala Harris will win the 12 electoral votes in the state of Washington. Here's how it breaks down right now. A difference of about 472,000, 473,000 votes. In the road to 270, that leaves Harris with 165, 214 for Donald Trump now. Let's go to Republicans Mike Dubke, White House Communications Director under former President Trump, and Sarah Fagan, a former aide to George W. Bush. Mike, first of all, give me your thoughts here. We've had no calls in battleground states so far. Is this a matter of...
We're going to update based on Google.
Hope right now to try to understand where this is going?
Well, it sounds that way from the Harris campaign, but I want to stick with the vibe comment that John Lovett just made, because I really do think that what we're seeing now is this coming to fruition, this vibe versus issues election that we've had. The Harris campaign really put on the vibes, the joy, and all of that. And I think the Trump campaign tried to stick to issues, immigration, inflation, instability around the world. And if you look at the exit polls that you all have been talking about today, you really see that Americans think that the country's on the wrong track. We think the economy, we were better off 4 years ago than we are today. And when you look at the way Harris tried to distance herself from Biden, I think this all came down to whether she'd be successful with that, and it looks like she wasn't.
Hey, Mike, let me just ask you just to bear with me for a second, because we have another projection we're going to put up here on the screen. And this is the state of Connecticut. NBC News projecting that Kamala Harris will win in Connecticut when all the votes are counted. 7 electoral votes. There's the breakdown right now, about a 10-point difference between the two of them. And here's where it takes us in the road to 270. Donald Trump standing at 214. Harris now with 172 electoral votes. We'll get back to our conversation. Sarah, let me turn to you. You've heard a little bit about this memo now with this campaign memo. What do you make of it?
Well, I think it's a campaign doing what it can to try to keep hope alive. You know, look, I don't see any good news for Democrats in these results. Donald Trump is running about a point or a point and a half ahead of where he was in 2020. And in these counties, in these blue wall counties that 75% of the vote is in, and Kamala Harris is running behind in these urban areas by 1 or 2 points compared to where President Biden performed. You look at that coupled with Donald Trump's overperformance with Hispanic voters, with young voters. I don't think they have a lot to hang their hat on. It's not over. There's votes to be counted. We should point out that these blue wall states tend to be red mirage. You know, they go red and then they tend to go, the race narrows as these big urban areas come in later. But when you just look at the underperformance of Kamala Harris and the overperformance of Trump, it's going to be pretty hard, I think, for her to catch him.
Yeah, the Harris team is saying they believe they overperformed in Philadelphia. Does that give you pause?
I don't see where they're saying that. Now, they're looking, I'm sure, at precinct analysis, and we're looking at a county total, so we should give that caveat. But, you know, Joe Biden got 80% of the vote in Philadelphia County, and she's not running at 80%. I think the last I looked was at 77 or 78%. So that's a pretty significant difference when a race is as close as it is.
All right, Sarah and Mike, thanks to both of you. Tom Yamas has more from the big board on Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia, but I also want to give us just sort of a vibe check of where we are. It is still very early in the night, right? And even though people may be claiming they've won certain states yet, we still haven't called any of the battlegrounds here at NBC News. And a reminder, Harris's easiest path is to hold the blue wall. If she wins Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, remember, she gets to the White House. Even if she loses Georgia, North Carolina, the entire Sun Belt, she still gets there. Let's talk about Georgia, though. Let's find out where we are there in the Peach State. Still too close to call for NBC News right now. 91% of the vote is in, but let's talk about where the vote remains. Look at, okay, the giant circles, remember those giant bubbles? That's the vote that still is outstanding. We're still waiting on this vote to be counted. And we know the exact number, or we can estimate the exact number. We think it's going to be about 487,000 votes. There's still almost 500,000 votes out in Georgia, still up for grabs here. Let's make some comparisons here. Remember, I told you Harris has to drive up the vote in the Atlanta metro area. 50% of the vote is going to come from this area right here. First county, Cobb County, she's performing just like where Biden is, slightly better. Fulton County, performing a little bit lower, but slightly, and there's still 7% of the vote out in Fulton, where Atlanta is exactly. Gwinnett County, 80%'s in. Look, she's holding the same marks of where Biden was. She's overperforming in Douglas County as we move further south. Look, she's almost exactly where Biden was all around the ring counties of Atlanta. That's good news and overperforming in Rockdale County. But if Democrats wanted to expand the map, we're not seeing that tonight. A place like Cherokee, we're going to see if they could make inroads there just north of Atlanta. It touches those ring counties. Trump was at 68% in 2020. Tonight he's at 69%, and they've almost got all the vote counted there. I want to move down, though, because there is something interesting happening in the Black Belt of Georgia. I was talking to you guys about the Black Belt of North Carolina earlier and how she was underperforming there. Remember, this was Biden's number. This is her number tonight. Watch as we go around here, okay? These are counties where it's a majority African-American, 52%, 50% for Kamala Harris. This is a rural county. Trump is overperforming here. We go to another rural red county, overperforming here. We come down here to Doherty County. She's slightly overperforming Biden there. But again, if she wants to win the state of Georgia, she's got to be doing better than Biden. It seems like she could be doing that in Atlanta. The numbers are good for her right now in the metro region, but it's still really too close for us to call here in Georgia. Guys, I'm going to send it back to you.
Okay, Tom, thank you so much. I want to go to Chuck because, Chuck, we were talking about Donald Trump getting new voters, people that didn't vote in 2020, and those voters breaking for him. And you're seeing some pretty astounding numbers.
Well, you are. You know, it's interesting. Well, first of all, look, Georgia is going to shrink. You got about all of this vote is going to be Democratic vote. She's got to win the remaining probably 2-1. That's like a reasonable thing. I mean, Georgia's probably going to be decided by 4 or 5 digits.
And where the vote is outstanding,
exactly.
You think there's a shot?
Yeah, I think we will be. I think we might be sticking around Georgia for a little while. Just it does. If you're them, you can't totally write it off. There's a path there. But our pollsters did some noted some comparisons to 2020. Just simply Trump margins. These are not in the battleground states, but it gives you a hint of the possibility Donald Trump could actually win the popular vote if he wins the Electoral College tonight. So, for instance, in Texas, he only won Texas by a little over 5 points in 2020. He's won it by 14 points tonight. In Iowa, it was 8 points. It's nearly 15 points tonight. In Florida, it was 3 points. It's nearly 13 points tonight for Trump. Not only gave you some blue states, Virginia, it was a 10-point Biden victory. It looks like it's going to be somewhere between 2 and 4 this time in Virginia. New Jersey, 15 points Biden. Right now, it's 5 for Harris. Illinois, another state, is a little under 10. It was at 17 points for Biden. So Trump has improved his standing in a lot of blue states. We'd seen that in our own polling. But it is why this time we are unlikely to have a split between the popular vote and electoral. Whoever wins the Electoral College is probably going to win the popular vote.
Those are pretty dramatic margins. I mean, we're not picking about a point or two here. You're talking with Texas
5 points,
5,
10
6,
points,
7, 8. I mean, that's
well, this is the Hispanic shift in the Southeast. It's clear. Florida and Texas, that's the massive Latino shift that we've seen tonight in those 2 states. But it may be spots of it everywhere.
So I'm getting reaction in from Democratic lawmakers, from Democratic operatives. Some are still saying, look, we could still win this thing. We can hold on to the blue wall. And that's absolutely accurate because we're still tracking the vote. But one Democratic lawmaker, sort of to the point that Chuck is making, saying if this race does not go Kamala Harris's way, this is a moment of reckoning for the Democratic Party. This person saying there needs to be a hard look at what went wrong and potentially really a real passing of the baton when it comes to leadership. And of course, the attention will turn to President Biden. And when he stepped aside, 72% in our exit polls saying the country is headed in the wrong direction. That's the backdrop to all of this. President Biden and this immense dissatisfaction with the direction that the country's headed.
It could be the Democratic Party allowed itself to just organize itself being an anti-Trump party. And in some ways, so focused on creating an anti-Trump coalition, they stopped being a political party, right? To come up with a basic agenda and again, right now, I get what that lawmaker is telling you because if you look at the whole Biden wasn't a pick of the future. It was a whatever you can do for Trump.
All right, we're gonna pause for a moment to welcome back some of our stations on the East Coast. It is just past 11:30 here in the East. Welcome back to those viewers rejoining us on this exciting night. I'm Lester Holt.
And I'm Savannah Guthrie. Glad you're along with us. This is NBC's election night coverage, and we've started to fill in that map, but those all-important 7 battlegrounds still in gray. We have not called them yet. We've been getting minute-by-minute projections, all leading up to this road to 270, which is the magic number needed to win the White House. So let's go through some of the boards here. This is Pennsylvania at this hour. 79% of the vote in, too close to call. We've talked a lot about the different counties and whether there's enough for Kamala Harris to make up where she's lost in some of the rural areas. Let's go to Michigan, too close to call there as well, but a lot more vote to be counted. In Wisconsin, let's see how much we've got there. About 2/3 of the vote or so, too close to call. In Georgia, we're getting close to a close there, but they do count their votes fast there, and it's 91% in, but we will see what happens. Too close to call. North Carolina, too early to call. We will wait and see what happens there, but again, starting to see 88% of the vote coming in there. Let's go out west. Arizona, too early to call. Polls closed about 2.5 hours ago there. What looks like we have a projected winner. This just came in right now. Okay, North Carolina, Donald Trump is the projected winner. You see the margin there, 136,000. So Donald Trump improved on his margin by back of the envelope math, 50,000 votes there in North Carolina. That's going to be a real disappointment for the Kamala Harris campaign. They had hoped that if North Carolina could be clawed back into the blue column, perhaps that would open up other paths for them out west, a Sunbelt path. It is looking like blue wall or bust. That is where it stands right now, 172 electoral votes for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in the lead right now.
Let's go to Tom right now and talk about now what this does to Kamala Harris's paths to victory.
Yeah, let's show you real quick how Trump wins, right? How we project that he wins. Robinson right now, 64.9%, 30% in. You can see how Trump's overperforming here. As we go along these rural counties, you can see Trump's numbers are increasing. 63 4 years ago, 66 tonight. We'll keep moving along here. 50%, 53%. So, Lester, you asked, how does this affect him in the race for president? Let's go back out to our big board here, the road to 270. When we started out tonight, right, the paths to victory here, Trump had 10, Harris had...
Okay, Harris is at 192, Trump 230.
Called North Carolina. Harris had more paths than Trump did. But this is essentially where we started the night. This is the way it ended in 2020, right? He won North Carolina. President Biden had won the rest of the battleground states. But this gives the Republicans and former President Trump some hope. We now move to Georgia. We're going to be looking at the vote in Georgia. But as Chuck mentioned, very, very close in Georgia. And we're going to be waiting on that vote, the full vote to come out of Atlanta in those ring counties right now. But a big win for former President Trump. It's the first battleground we're calling tonight.
All right, Tom, thanks very much.
Remember, there was some late polling in the state that came just over the weekend that suggested that perhaps Kamala Harris was surging in North Carolina, that maybe she was making gains among some of these voters. That is clearly not turning out to be the case. That said, you've seen the reporting from her campaign that they are looking at the all-important blue wall. Of course, the question is, if Georgia goes, and you and Chuck were just talking about Georgia, but if Georgia does end up in the red column, it is Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania.
Well, to that point, the Secretary of State in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, who people are familiar with from the last election, has said on the record that Trump has an insurmountable lead in Georgia with the number of votes outstanding. So he's the Secretary of State. I think he knows what he's speaking of, but we will continue to watch.
We've got another race to call, another presidential call. This is in the state of Virginia. This call coming a little later than many people might have expected, but Kamala Harris will win the 13 electoral votes in Virginia. There's the breakdown right now, 134,000 vote difference, 84% of the vote in. That, of course, goes into the Harris column. Here's where that leaves us in the road to 270. Trump with 230 now, 40 from his goal. Harris with 185 electoral votes.
Okay, let's bring Jen Psaki in, former Biden White House press secretary, and Mark Lauder, who was joining us earlier. Jen, we haven't had a chance to talk to you. I mean, look, it's getting to be a narrower path for Kamala Harris, no question about it. It's the blue wall or bust at this point.
It's math.
Yeah, it's math.
Ultimately, look, I think that Jen O'Malley-Dillon email that NBC News obtained that you've talked about a little bit tells you a lot about where the heads are of the people on the campaign.
This is the chair of the campaign.
The chair of the campaign. She was also the campaign manager when Biden won in 2020. And basically, they did not talk about it. I know NBC has not made a call in Georgia, but they did not mention that Georgia is not a part of that email. Neither is North Carolina. You just made a call on that. It's about the blue wall states, and she warns that Arizona and Nevada will take some time. What does become challenging, I think part of the purpose of an email like that is also to buck up the troops inside, the team who's been working so hard for months, that's part of it, and also to send that note to supporters. But yes, it becomes, as the path becomes narrower, there's no more margin for error. Or no more margin for something going a different way than you hoped it would. And right now, what the Harris team is doing, which happens on every presidential campaign, as you know as well, is sitting in what you call the boiler room, which is kind of an intense word to use, but that's what it's called. And they're looking at their vote goals in these counties and how the outcome aligns. And you look at everything from, did they get what they needed in the big cities? In Philly, there are some cities that haven't fully come in, so they're waiting for those. But also what the margins are for Trump, which are higher, as you've been reporting, and we've been talking about over at MSNBC, in some of the rural counties, meaning he's getting more votes there that they need to make up for in the cities. So it's a numbers game in each of these states.
But even in reliably blue states, we're seeing narrowing margins. We just saw it in Virginia. We called it. Kamala Harris won it, but I believe by a smaller margin than she did, or that the Democrats did 4 years ago. I want to show Minnesota right now, which we are calling too close to call. And this is a reliably blue state. Let me show you what the numbers look like, the breakdown. Half of the vote in. It's called too close to call. Again, when you see that wide margin, you were thinking, what are you guys talking about? It's because our decision desk is crunching the numbers. They know where those votes have come from, whether they're reliably Trump districts or reliably a Kamala Harris or a Democratic area of the state. And on that basis, they're saying too close to call. Does that surprise you?
Minnesota's a close state. It often is a close state. It's one certainly that the Harris team would love to have been in their win column earlier. But again, I think for them, what becomes harder and harder is as you get more vote total in, and the path becomes narrower and narrower and narrower, and that's a bit where they are at this moment.
The sitting governor Tim Walz on the ticket, Minnesota's governor Tim Walz,
and a pretty popular governor in Minnesota. And there's a lot of things that bend the mind a little bit if you're the Harris team, including that. I don't know that they're overly worried about Minnesota, but certainly, yes, would have liked to have that and Virginia in their win column earlier.
I've heard a lot from people on the left who have asked over the last several weeks, how can this be a tie? What's your answer?
I would have asked the same question. I mean, I think obviously
under the same scenario.
Because obviously with the economy, with the 2/3 of the American people who think the country's on the wrong track on the immigration, like all of the issues in kind of general polling would suggest that this would be a runaway for the Republican or for the non-party in power. The fact that it's not, I think there's obviously a lot of.
Do you think if any other Republican were on the ticket, you'd have much greater margins in terms of a Republican victory?
That's difficult to answer because Donald Trump brings out such a passionate base where you might have a problem getting that overperformance in rural areas because he is so animating, especially on the right. Now, he's equally animating on the left, which turns out that opposition.
Or you might get suburban women on side of a different kind of Republican.
Jen, has the conversation begun yet about Joe Biden and about the decision to ask him to step aside?
It will begin. It will begin depending on the outcome. And obviously, there hasn't been a race.
Bitcoin. Okay, last time was 8% up, 8.8. Solana 15. Doge 27. Let's refresh. Doge 28, 16, 9. So we back up a little. So guess the market is betting on Trump again. What's going on Twitter? What's the new Twitter update for trending? Florida, California, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, blah, blah, blah. Where is Florida trending? Sorry, I didn't mean to paint that picture. Sitting with Twitter, you can find a lot of shit on Twitter. Last election, I didn't know a single independent swing voter who was voting for Trump. This time, I don't know anyone who isn't. Okay. Let's get back to the CNN.
Maybe more moderate population in and around the big cities. And so that is why the Harris campaign thought
153, 227.
a better shot. But look, the headwinds of the economy, the inflation that people are feeling, the difficulty in their everyday lives.
Yeah, she could not outrun that Biden economy.
Yeah, and the economy, Chris, that is what people are feeling every single day. I mean, we were talking earlier about whether or not the sort of women and the idea of this being the first post-Roe presidential campaign was going to supersede how people felt when they were buying eggs and milk. And certainly North Carolina.
CNN voice on low. Is it Trump winning or something?
In these other states, the answer is no.
You know, we have talked about it all night, and we've disagreed to a certain degree about the right track, wrong track, and it was 27% right track, 60-something% wrong track. You know, maybe part of that is dissatisfaction with Trump. Maybe some of that is dissatisfaction with the abortion overturn. But in terms of what people live every day, it's the economy, it's the price of eggs, it's the fear of inflation, which with the spread of illegal immigrants north is now being felt as an issue, not just on the border, but in northern states as well.
Yeah, and Jake, I'm going to be interested to figure out and to find out once we get all the details how much success the Trump campaign had in increasing their share of the mail vote. They worked really hard at that.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's bring you a key race alert and get you up to speed on where we are in all the states that we have not called. In battleground Pennsylvania, Donald Trump with 51.3%, Kamala Harris 47.6%. Donald Trump more than 212,000 votes ahead with 82% of the estimated vote in from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In battleground Michigan, Donald Trump in the lead, 51.2%, Kamala Harris at 47%. Donald Trump at 98,014 votes ahead of Kamala Harris, with 41% of the estimated vote in from Michigan. In battleground Wisconsin, Donald Trump in the lead, 50.7% to Harris's 47.7%. Donald Trump with a 68,000 plus vote lead over Harris, with 71% of the estimated vote in from the Badger State. In battleground Georgia, Donald Trump up 50.8% to Harris's 48.3%. Donald Trump with 128,582 more votes than Kamala Harris, with 92% of the estimated vote counted in the state of Georgia. In the state of Arizona, another battleground, Donald Trump in the lead there, 49.8% to Harris's 49.3%. Donald Trump with a 7,588 vote lead over Kamala Harris. That's with more than half, 52% of the estimated vote in. In Nevada, Donald Trump in the lead, 73%. Kamala Harris with 26.2%. Donald Trump with a 10,985 vote lead over Harris. That's with only 2% of the vote in from from Nevada, only 2%. Boris Sanchez now has some new projections in the fight for control of the U.S. Senate.
Jake, a major moment for Republicans. They have just flipped. They are expected to flip their second Democratic seat of the night, this one coming in Ohio. There, Republican Bernie Moreno defeating incumbent Democrat Sherrod Brown. Moreno, the owner of some luxury car dealerships, who invested early in blockchain technology, fought to attach Brown to the Biden administration more broadly, specifically on issues like immigration. Sherrod Brown, a populist who had survived some difficult tests in his state before, cannot overcome the political headwinds he is facing. Donald Trump has now won Ohio 3 elections in a row, and it's simply too much for the incumbent Democrat to overcome. So we are projecting that Bernie Moreno is your new junior senator from the Buckeye State. Meantime, 4 Democratic holds. The first one, a historic one in New Jersey. There, Congressman Andy Kim is set to become the first Korean American ever to serve in the U.S. Senate. He defeats real estate tycoon Curtis Bashaw. Meantime, in Virginia, there, incumbent Democratic Senator Tim Kaine, a former vice presidential candidate, he's projected to defeat Hung Kao, a former Navy captain. Another Democratic hold to tell you about this one, Martin Heinrich, the incumbent senator there, seeking his 3rd term. He defeats Nella Dominici, whose father was the last Republican senator elected in New Mexico some 20 years ago. Another Democratic hold to project for you, this one coming in the state of Washington. There, Democratic incumbent Senator Maria Cantwell wins her 5th term as she defeats Raul Garcia, an ER doctor. Now, what does that pickup in Ohio mean for the magic number? We started out the night with Republicans needing to pick up 2 Democratic seats to take control of the chamber. With West Virginia and Ohio, they have hit 2, and now they're seeking to pad those numbers. Currently, as we speak, Republicans are leading in 4 seats currently held by Democrats. Let's get you an update on where those are right now with some key race alerts. These are live results coming into CNN. We start with the state of Wisconsin. There, the CEO of California-based SunWest Bank, Eric Hovde, is 29,000 votes ahead of Democratic incumbent Senator Tammy Baldwin, who's seeking her 3rd term in office. 70% of the
and let some other stations join us. That is where the map stands at this hour, about 10 minutes till midnight here on the East Coast. And we've got a lot to get to. We want to go to Sam Brock in Asheville, North Carolina. Of course, the western part of North Carolina, hard hit by Hurricane Helene. We've got, if you're just joining us, we've made a projection in North Carolina. Donald Trump will keep North Carolina in the win column, which significantly narrows the potential paths for Kamala Harris to take the presidency. We've also had a governor's race decided there. Sam, what you got?
Yeah, that's very apropos, actually, Savannah. I'm going to talk about the governor's race in a second, but a few reflections here. First, the Democratic strongholds in North Carolina, Buncombe County and Asheville being one of them, Mecklenburg with Charlotte, of course, and Wake and Raleigh were almost identical in terms of the splits. 60-38 for Democrat versus Republican here, 66%, I believe, in Mecklenburg and Charlotte, 63% in Wake. That's almost identical to what it was 4 years ago, but it's the margins in the rural parts of the state that really drove over this victory, at least by a couple of percentage points for Trump, which sounds pretty familiar. Tom was talking about that a second ago. That's thought one. Thought two is the Democratic race. You know, the governor's race, excuse me, there was a lot of thoughts about split tickets and whether Mark Robinson would be potentially dragging down President Trump or even affecting the down ballot races. We have updates here, and it's not just Mark Robinson losing convincingly to Josh Stein, 55 to 39%, with 85% or so of the votes in so far, but it's also the lieutenant governor's race. The Democrat up a couple percentage points there, Rachel Hunt. Jeff Jackson, the AG, he's up a couple percentage points over his Republican opponent. So you're seeing truly Republican or voters here in North Carolina going across the board for statewide Democrats and then also voting for Donald Trump. So we're seeing that sort of as a microcosm of this overall picture. And then lastly, you have roughly 37% of the electorate in North Carolina that is unassigned, right? Not Democratic, not Republican. Democrats, registered Democrats in the state had gone down about 80,000 or so, I believe, votes from the previous election. Republicans had gained 100,000 plus registered voters, but the reality here is now 400,000 new unaffiliated voters, and we were wondering, where will they fall? What is the fault line going to be for those folks, especially these hundreds of thousands that are moving in from out of state? North Carolina gained the third most amount of people post-pandemic after Texas and Florida. How would they play out, especially in the suburbs of these large, Democratic cities, by and large? And what we're finding out right now is that the exurbs did really lean more Trump, and that a lot of these folks in the unidentified category were going more red than blue, at least in this election. That's what the early results appear to show, Savannah.
All right, Sam Brock in Asheville for us. Thank you. Let's go over to Tom Yamas, who's looking at Minnesota. We were just talking about Governor Walz, the sitting governor, on the top of the ticket here, and it's too close to call.
Too close to call right now. Democrats, though, are okay with this margin right now. About 50% of the vote is still out. This is how it ended up in 2020.
I want to show you something, though.
You can see
Blue
Harris
Earth
is
County, okay?
slightly.
So this is a
county that Trump is on top right now. Biden won it in 2020. Why do I want to show you
Why am I getting
Blue Earth County? Well, besides having the coolest name in the entire country for a county, this is where Governor Tim Walz is from. This is where he taught with his wife. This is where Coach Walz is from. Right now, Republicans are winning his county. It just goes to show when you talk about how Trump may or may not win this election. He's driving up votes in rural areas. I'll show you another one, Stearns County, which actually has a large Somali American population. 95% of the vote in, he's overperforming there. So again, Minnesota, it doesn't look like it's in trouble for Democrats right now. So 50% of the vote is out. But when we look at those rural counties, he's overperforming even in a place where Governor Tim Walz is from. Guys?
All right, Tom, thanks very much. Let's bring in NBC's Blaine Alexander, who was in the Atlanta area tonight with some developing news.
Yeah, we have heard some notable remarks from the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, concerning the race here in Georgia. Now, before I say them, I want to make it clear, NBC News is still characterizing Georgia as too close to call. But I want to let you know what Raffensperger said not too long ago in a news conference. He said that he believes, looking at the numbers, Donald J. Trump has a, quote, insurmountable lead with the number of votes outstanding. He later goes on to say, it looks like this is pretty much done, and then says, quote, I think the results are pretty well baked in based on where the leads are right now. He's talking about the state of Georgia. Now, again, NBC News still characterizing this as too close to call, but we're talking with Brad Raffensperger. Of course, he is in the control center in his Secretary of State's office, watching those results come in, watching the numbers, and also where those votes are coming in as well. Now, I've spent the evening talking to some of my Republican sources throughout the state, and I asked them the question. I said, one, how are they feeling? They were all optimistic, but I said, if there is a lead from Donald Trump winning here in Georgia, what would be different from 2020? Of course, we all know that Georgia kind of shocked so many people around the country 4 years ago by flipping blue and helping send Joe Biden to the White House. But they said, again, across the board this time, that it was the push toward early voting by Republicans that they believe has really made a difference in the Peach State this time around. You remember 4 years ago, Donald Trump was really waving people off from voting early, telling them to go on Election Day. This time we've seen a very different message. His surrogates have been preaching a very different message. Even Governor Brian Kemp and other top Republicans in the state have been pushing that early voting message. When I spoke with one Republican source earlier tonight, he said looking at early voting, he was optimistic. Also, the fact that Republicans tend to turn out more on Election Day, he was feeling good about the way things were going here in the state as well. So several sources telling me they believe that early voting did make a difference, guys.
All right, Blaine Alexander, thanks very much. You know, I was going down, as we bring the panel back, I was going down the most important issues from the exit polls.
Yeah.
Immigration was number 4.
That's right. And that was Donald Trump's closing message, right? I mean, it was his message since he's been in the race. Think about his biggest day one policy priority, mass deportations. He's talked again and again with very few specifics on how that would be implemented about deporting people who have come into this country illegally here. It's always been a big issue for him, dating back something like 8 years now, 4th on the exit poll list. But look what was up there at number 2, the economy. And remember, just because a candidate were to win on the top issue, which this year, based on the exit polls now, is state of democracy, doesn't mean they're going to win overall. And state of democracy is complicated as the top issue because Republicans and Democrats see it different ways.
Yeah, both sides think there's a threat to democracy for different reasons. Can we go over to Tom Yamas? He's been pacing over there by the Georgia map. Because it's interesting. I mean, we have the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, but who has certainly shown his independence, saying that Trump has an insurmountable lead. I believe you and Chuck have said there's still some vote out there. It's not over yet. What do you see?
I'm going to give you point counterpoint. First off, let's see where that remaining vote is so far. Again, the giant bubbles, that's where the vote still needs to be counted. It's all over the Atlanta metro region. This is where Democrats are going to run up the score. This is where their base is, where they've been able to expand. So I'm going to click on a county here like Cobb County. I'm going to bring it out to compare to Joe Biden in 2020. Remember, she wants to perform over or at where Biden is right now to kind of see where her watermarks are. I'm going to highlight this so you guys can see the numbers to follow. Remember, on the left-hand side, she wants to be at where he is or higher. So let's see where we're at here. Fulton County, 71-72, slightly under. We move over to Gwinnett, a little bit under, 73. She's overperforming in Rockdale County. We come to DeKalb here, a little bit under. We come over to Douglas County. She's overperforming. But here's the flip side of all this. Let's throw a dart to the east side of Georgia. Any county, I'm going to pick a random county. Look how Trump's overperforming, 68% to 71. Again, I'm going to just touch random counties here, 65, 69. These aren't big counties, but any county I touch, he's going, except for that one, any other county. Well, actually, no, he flipped it. Actually, this any county you come here in rural Georgia, he's flipping all these counties. And like Jen Psaki just said, it's math. Can they run up the score here? Is this what the Secretary of State is talking about, that the numbers are so high in the rural counties, Democrats won't catch them in the Atlanta metro region, but there's still a lot of vote out in this area. So that's one of the reasons why we can't call Georgia just yet. Let me go, election alert.
Okay, where you have polls closing at the top of the hour and the beginning of the morning. It'll be midnight in the East Coast, and we await the results from Hawaii. The polls close there in about 10 seconds from now, so we'll take a pause here so our other stations can join us or head to their local news.
And as we hit the midnight hour here in the East, the NBC News now making a projection in the state of Hawaii that Kamala Harris will win those 4 electoral votes in Hawaii. That's the only poll closing at the midnight hour here. The road to 270, Harris now with 189, Donald Trump still leading with 230 electoral votes.
All right, we've got quite a few battlegrounds still pending tonight. Pennsylvania, the biggest prize, 84% of the vote in. It is too close to call. In Wisconsin, same story. Here we go. 75% of the vote in, a difference of 87,000 votes. Michigan, too close to call at this hour as well. Midnight on the East Coast. 15 votes up for grabs. They're too close. Arizona, too early to call. Just been counting for about 3 hours now. Out west in Nevada, also too early to call. And in Minnesota, we have too close to call. Democrats still feeling very good about their prospects there, but the margins are not at a place where we are ready to call that. Georgia, too close to call at this hour, too. We just discussed that. So that might be a ray of light for Kamala Harris, or perhaps a very a narrowing of her path to victory. We should mention, Tom, we have called North Carolina. That was the first battleground to call, and it stays in the red column for Donald Trump.
Yeah, and I want to go through Pennsylvania now because we're starting to get more vote in Pennsylvania, and I want to focus on the east side of Pennsylvania here. This is 2024 right now. Look, a lot of the vote is still out, but let me show you 2020. You can see how much of this section was blue in 2020. Again, Biden won these counties. Now this is 2024. He's flipping counties like Monroe. Again, it's about a 200 vote difference there, so we can't really put too much in that, but he's ahead. Northampton County, remember, this is the one that has picked the president, or at least picked the winner of Pennsylvania, going back to the Kennedy years. This is Easton. This is a fast-growing area, suburbs. It used to be the people that used to work at Bethlehem Steel. It's now changing. Again, fast-growing suburbs in south central Pennsylvania. 52%, he's on top. Again, a reminder here, this is a county that Biden won in 2020. And this is new right now. This is Bucks County. 56% in. Still a lot of the vote is out. There's only about a 400 vote difference there. We're still waiting on 183,000 votes. So Republicans can't really draw too much out of this. But Democrats would rather these counties were all blue. Let's move a little further south around the collar counties of Philadelphia here. Montgomery County, this is where Governor Shapiro is from, 61%. Performing slightly under Joe Biden, but not too bad. Chester County, 58 to 54. That's a bigger gap there. Again, remember, Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania because he does better than Hillary Clinton in those suburbs around Philadelphia. And let's take a look at Philadelphia right now. Okay, 81 for Biden, 77 for Kamala Harris. There's still about 30% of the vote is out. But again, these aren't the trend lines that Democrats are going to want to see. Look, it could all change when that vote comes in. This is where we are right now. This is a snapshot in time. It could all change. Erie County is another swing county that we're watching. About 75% of the vote is in. She's overperforming Biden there. That's a good sign for her, especially in Western PA, where Democrats knew they were going to have some trouble because of the issue of fracking. And let's look at Allegheny County real quick. This is Pittsburgh. 94% of the vote is in, and she's about at the same mark where Biden is. That's where we stand right now, guys, in Pennsylvania.
How about Wisconsin? Can you do Door County? Because as you well know, fun fact alert, Door County has, do you like the fun fact alert?
Fun fact number 7.
It's picked the president the last 6 elections.
Yeah, so right now, if that's what you're betting on, Door County is blue. Democrats are on top there. But look, guys, this is a very small number. Door County is not a big county, but it's one that all the political watchers look at because it usually picks the winner almost always of the statewide race in Wisconsin. Right now, it's blue. That's a great sign for Democrats. I'm going to look at another one, like I mentioned, Sauk County. This is another one that usually picks the winner. Trump is on top here. Biden won it in 2020, so he's really overperforming, going from 48 to 52. But again, there's still about 30% of the vote that's out there. So we got to wait and see. The big ones we're watching in Wisconsin, as you know, Savannah, Dane County, University of Wisconsin here, the fastest growing area of the state. 75%. She's slightly underperforming there. Again, she has to turn out in these cities because, like the other battleground states, I should say, unlike the other battleground states, there are not large minority groups in Wisconsin. It's the widest of all the battleground states. And then Milwaukee, again, we're going to wait till late to get all the vote in Milwaukee. She's at 66%. 4 years ago, Joe Biden won Milwaukee, and he